Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello and welcome from. Hang on, this isn't Knock Hill. What's going on here? No, this was all a plan change, ladies and gentlemen. Don't listen along to my banter in the background. The SimSpeed broadcast of the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans bringing you live tonight from our night race of the season. The Exchange Daytona International Speedway Road Course takes control in place of Knock Hill, and boy, that's a good change. It's going to create some interesting racing around here. Drafting's going to be in effect, but before we even get there, let's actually talk qualifying because it was intense at the front of the field.
Yes, Scott. Massive qualifying session has just wrapped up. The drivers are in just a little 5-minute warm-up stage, and the times are super, super close. Only less than 1/1000th of a second between P2 and P3 as we do go to the qualifying results. Michael Taliancic there taking pole position in the number 21 machine, a 1:43.443. But look at the gap between the top three, 15 thousandths of a second. Absolutely incredible, Scott.
Yeah, nothing in it right across the board to ladies and gents. So it's been an absolutely banging session to at least get ourselves underway with here from Virtual Daytona. Let's maybe start to worry a little bit about the fuel picture, as is always the case. Well, actually, we're going to talk a little bit more about those qualifying. Super, super tight in the middle there. Nothing to work with at all. It's been tight all season long, but more importantly, have we got our championship standings available as well? Because that's starting to get a little bit tighter in the middle as well. Up and down the field, it's been intense. Scott Gamble's obviously sped away a little bit, but have a look at that margin for second place. Kirby holds it by 6 points. Then it's 3 back to Spriggs. Remember Spriggs? Horrible round last week. Just could not get it together. Anytime there was an incident, he was just about wound up in that one, Brady.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jason Spriggs had a night to forget at Sandown last week. And even John Latham, he's right in the equation too. He's been there or thereabouts, and a little bit of bad luck for him some weeks, including last week at Sandown. So second to fifth, really nothing in at all. And then you go back the battle for sixth, Damien Cairns, Crosby, Lewis, Travis Hunt, Greg Sharp. They're separated by, 32 points. So really nothing between the bottom half of the top 10 either. But pretty much at the moment, Scott Gamble's championship to lose. He's been the foreman of this series, and he'll be starting P3 tonight. And tonight's probably the track where pole position won't really matter as much as we touched on earlier with the drafting and the tow. It's going to be absolutely massive, and the strategy tonight's going to be absolutely bonkers, and I can't wait for it.
We'll get an opportunity to talk about Dan Yeaman's new favorite graphic as well. The two-stop strategy expected here, the 300-kilometer race. I mean, if there's a track that you want to come to and you want to go endurance racing, look, Daytona kicks off the season in terms of the endurance race calendar, always with the Daytona 24 in January each and every year. This year, Scott McLaughlin was a part of the cars that were taking part in that race, and now we get the opportunity to bring you the Kumho Tyres having a crack at it. When you go to an endurance race, it's always strategy. You've got to talk about strategy, and boy, is there some strategy to play through here tonight. Have a look at that information in the top right-hand corner of the graphic. Fuel save in draft, plus 1 to 2 laps. I reckon there'll be a couple guys out there that'll have a crack at that third or fourth lap on this tank. We've seen Taliancic go very long this season, Brady, as well. And have a look at where he's qualified, up at the pointy end of things.
It's certainly going to be very interesting how this all plays out. We were talking pre-race. We might even see guys pit on lap 5, as early as lap 5 for the first round of pit stops. So it's going to be certainly very interesting, and it's really going to spice things up, and going to see a lot of varying strategies throughout the field. Obviously, safety cars could play their part as well, but this is a pretty big and wide track, unlike Sandown where we were last week. So I'm expecting some pretty tidy racing, but the entry into turn 1, into turn 2, into the road course section could be a little bit of a bottleneck on the opening lap through turn 1 and 2, and then the horseshoe turn 3 and the dog leg. Could be a little bit spicy on the first lap, but I think once they get around to turn 6 onto the back straight, and then obviously into the 10-11 Le Mans chicane, I think it should clear out just a little bit, and we should get some fantastic racing here tonight. Scott, 5.72 kilometers, 12 corners, and guys are starting to get on the grid, so we might bring that graphic up, and we will go through the starting grid for tonight. 300-kilometer race as well, 53 laps. I don't think we'll have a voice left at all after this one, Scott. But Mike Talliancic, he will be on the front row pole position alongside the 180 of Matt Vanderkraan. Row number 2 will be championship leader, the 543 of Scotty Gamble, and the 24 of John Latham, starting position number 4, with Kenny Latta in the 269, starting position number 5, and Chad Lewis in the 727. He'll start position number 6. The next row will be Greg Sharp and Jason Spriggs, and rounding out the top 10 will be the 999 of Christian Smart and the 053 of Simon Hattershide.
Yeah, immediately behind them, Craig Friend and Scott McCune. McCune again starting to find some consistency in terms of that qualifying pace. Starts right up at the top end of the second 10. Michael Stewart and Travis Hunt off immediately in behind him. And we'll keep our eyes on Travis Hunt through the Zoom call yet again tonight. Moving one row further back, we've got Dean Flavell off alongside of Dave Kirby. Dave Kirby, second in the championship. Again, Mr. Consistency himself. Qualifying never seems to phase him. Moving back one row further, we'll have Chris Miller and Jamie McKnight, and they'll be rolling off out of 17th and 18th before we get to Peter Vanderkraan and one of his best qualifying performances this season, off alongside of Robert Crisdale.
The 85 of Jeff Thomas, who has shown plenty of speed this season when he's been in attendance. He'll start position number 21, and Stewie Hall, he'll start position number 22. Rod Hollis and Al Cesar, guys who were running up the front last week in that chaotic strategic race at Sandown. They'll start 23rd and 24th. Matty Parker and Stephen Banks, they'll share row number 13. And then Stephen Kennedy and Paul Burns will be 27th and 28th. Rick Vigor and Scotty Van Loon, they'll start 29th and 30th. And the last remaining cars on the grid will be Troy Sipple, Darren Crosby, and then looks like Brenton O'Brien will be the last race car on the grid. So 33 cars, probably a smaller field compared to what we're used to. I think we had nearly about 45 last week, it feels like. So a little bit of a smaller field, but the quality is here, and it's going to be a fantastic race, Scott.
Yeah, one of the unique sights this season is the angled banking standing starts. This is a tricky one to get on the way. The cars are going to want to pivot to the bottom of the side. You cannot afford any wheel spin whatsoever. What are these guys going to have in store for us? We're about 5 seconds away from those lights starting to come on. We'll build to a start from there. Keep your eyes on the guys with nothing to lose. Is this the time? We've talked about his potential. Matt Vanderkraan, he's got onto that front row by less than 1,000th of a second. Does he have enough in the tank to lead it into turn 1? Is it going to be Talliancic? Is it going to be a strategy race? And Gamble gets a very poor getaway. And there's a number of cars in the middle of the pack that are always 3 to 4 wide as they try and file their way down into turn number 1. Who's got that jump? Vanderkraan trying to slot around the outside, get himself down into second place. He's off alongside of John Latham. They're all going to fire into turn number 1. And it's just chaos way back down in the pack because there's still multi-cars wide. They've sorted themselves out up the front of the field, and Kirby gained a couple of spots in that initial start. McCune's trying to buy his way into the top 10 as well. Keep your eyes for Parker a little bit further down the pack as he tries to slot himself in just behind Halil Sazar as well. And I believe that's Peter Vanderkraan on the outside of that first horseshoe that's dropped a couple of spots as they go through the kink. It's tricky in the kink. You've got to go in there single file most of the race. It's not very easy to get past up there, and a lot of drivers using a little bit of valor in a 300-kilometre endurance affair here tonight.
Very clean first half. Oh, a bit of contact there. Into turn, I think Jeff Thomas, no, it was Travis Hunt, got in the back of Michael Stewart, who had a big moment. He's going to lose so much speed coming onto the back straight, and he'll be alongside David Kirby side by side through
hang on,
the banking.
P3 up at the front as well. It's going to be Matt Vanderkraan and Scott Gamble who went side by side. Cesar's around on the bottom of the banking. Gamble's been fired across the inside of the chicane. Gets airborne. The soldier on. Holden Commodore slips down the standings. And for the second time only so far this season in round number 8, he has chaos go against him as Matt Vanderkraan sizes in. I don't know. We're going to have to see a replay of that one for sure. We've got multiple other incidents to have a look at on this lap. McCune snags inside the top 10, looking for a little bit of draft. Heddershide to his inside. Where does Gamble fire out in all this? How does the patience of Scott Gamble work through things? And I can tell you there's already multiple cars fuel saving on the run down into turn number 1. I just saw Matt Vanderkraan drop about 20 or 30 metres to Ken Latter. He just let him go. Just completely lifted out of the throttle onto turn 1. So the games have already started around the outside. Was that Greg Sharp I saw? Yeah, he's starting to improve as this season's gone on. I think that's the furthest up the field I've seen him in the opening laps.
Yeah, very good start there for Greg Sharp in the 747 up to position 9 on the road. So if they start, and Heddershine's off the road. Heddershine's off the road at turn number 5. Had a massive moment. Looks like he may have just dropped a wheel off on the he dropped the wheel off on the right hand side and had a massive moment. Very lucky. Minor contact on the outside. He will drop a number of positions there.
I can tell you 3 cars, ladies and gentlemen, have made the trip to pit lane on lap number 1. Halil Cesar, Stephen Banks, Darren Crosby are the 3. So they were all involved in that incident on lap number 1. Everyone else is going a lot further. The goal will be, as you heard in the pre-race show, to try and get to a minimum of lap 5. From lap 5, there's an option for them to get home. From lap 9, they can definitely get home. So that will be their targets. This is what they're going to try and get themselves in. Peter van der Kram was also impacted in that issue on lap number 1, out of 19th back to 30th. Ken Latter, a big beneficiary of all the bickering and squabbling that went on ahead of him, with Gamble and van der Kram coming together in the Le Mans chicane on lap number 1. And have a look at the positions gained for Rick Vigor. And Brenton O'Brien's up a bunch. Jamie McKnight, as usual, on that list. Christian Smart's got himself a couple spots as well, all the way up to P5, and John Latham goes about setting the fastest lap of the race. Oh, never mind. Christian Smart will just nick that one off him.
Fantastic stuff there for Christian Smart. He's already up 4 positions, and on screen, Troy Sipple running side by side into turn 1, the 17 machine around the outside, and the Piggy's Performance Racing machine will get the job done there on Paul Burns, and just ahead, Rick Vigor in the Angry Birds Racing machine. A beautiful looking livery there, Scott.
Mate, whoa, there we go. Heddershine's around again, and unfortunately, Vigor is the recipient of the wrong place, wrong time award in the early stages of tonight's race. He has got a lot of damage. That looks like hardware failure.
He's definitely having dramas. We will go to the Logic G replay.
I reckon that might be a graphics failure of some description.
Looks like he's just made a little mistake here on his own. Initially. So maybe he's just heated the tyres going in the next quarter, but he's way off track. So possibly maybe in a VR issue, like I can't remember who it was last week who had the VR issue, but
it's Michael Stewart, yeah.
Yeah, so he might be having a similar drama possibly.
It's just a weird issue. This always screams he's not under control of the vehicle. So either he's got excessive damage, and I'll get you whether or not he's actually required to come to pit. Yeah, he's definitely required to come to the pit lane. Meatball flag has been displayed to Simon Heddershide, requiring him to come to the attention of his pit lane crew and get that car ship shape before he can continue on in this race. But I wonder whether or not there was a hardware failure beforehand, because something just did not look right the way that he was driving.
Yeah, certainly, Scott. It looks like he was having some type of issue, unfortunately, and a really good qualifying effort as well from Heddershide. So was started P number 10 in this race and was looking for a solid result, but unfortunately, just not going quite his way at the moment.
All right, so let's start having a look back at the front end of the field, and there's a few sort of questions that we need to start answering. First and foremost, fuel saving. If you can save 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 laps worth of fuel, that is going to be a significant amount of time that you will spend not static in that pit lane, and instead with that car rolling out on track. And in technical terminology, we were talking about before the stream, the harder the car goes burr, the more juice that car will burn, is, I believe, technical terminology that engineers use in real-life race cars. Yeah,
I've heard that term once or twice before. Scott, you're not the only one. It's all good.
Got to keep up to date with the new and youthful internet culture, even when broadcasting the league for a little bit of the older populace among us. Oh, Lord. So Smart's pushing on, but Van der Crane in the early stages, this might actually be a really good idea to keep an eye on these two as they run down to turn 1, because I thought Van der Crane was one of the guys that was looking to fuel save quite efficiently as he possibly can. And if he is so, you'll just see him completely and utterly yield in just a few moments to Christian Smart. They're going side by side in turn number 1. No, goes in just about even. So track position's also a key part of this, Brady Baldwin, because if you don't have track position, you've got to find a way to get it. Strategy is one of the better ways to get it. But if you're in this point where you've got a little bit of track position and you can fuel save and be a little bit more aggressive like Christian Smart tries to do, pinches him a little narrow, Smart will fire off the tyres, and that is going to be Matt van der Kraan getting the elbows out. So strategy and a little bit of a defensive driving seems to be the play.
Yeah, certainly right, Scott. And what you just touched on just a moment ago, I was noticing Ken Latta is about a second and a half off the back of John Latham, and now he's really close up. He's pushed really hard, trying to get on the back of the 24 machine to use his toe because Latta, he was all on his own for the first 2 or 3 laps there. He's really close up on the back of the 24, get in his toe, and now he can start saving some fuel as well.
Being out on your own, clean air to all of those aerodynamical devices. So downforce was in his favour. Now the problem for Matt van der Kraan and Christian Smart is, with all that squabbling, they've lost a little bit of the toe. That is a beautiful shot down the back straight into the lawn chicane on lap number 5 as they make their way through. 5 of 53 here tonight, 300 kilometres was the journey. The last race last season that we had of that 300 kilometres was the absolute epic that we had at the mountain. Boy, that one went deep into the night. It was such a stunner. Can they produce here? Yet again for the Kumho Tyres V8 veterans as well. They start to produce right now. On cue, Scott McCune sends it to the inside 3 wide. Scott McCune, 3 for 1. Why don't you?
That was absolutely epic there. We were nearly 4 wide going to turn 1. Scott McCune, a massive line down the inside.
And Greg Sharp trying to put on his best dirt track cowboy for you, Brady. I think he's trying to impress you. What do you think?
He just might be. And I just had a look at Scott McCune, 303 kilometers an hour going to turn 1. That is absolutely epic.
Yep. So hard on the loud pedal, and this a little bit further back in the pack. We're watching on. I believe we're on with Travis Hunt at the moment, at the back end of this battle pack. So this goes from 11th all the way through to Gamble at the moment. That's at the front end of this pack, but there's another car that they're hunting down, which was Scott McCune, who sent it from 10th place to 7th place. You'll want to watch that one back a whole host here tonight. And he's still adjusting Travis Hunt to that new VR. Boy, it literally looks like he's got a screen sticky tape to the front end of his forehead, doesn't it? Some of the way the VR machines are designed.
Yeah, it looks pretty different to all the VR systems I've used before, but it's probably the more modern technology, and it doesn't look like he's too happy at the moment, Travis Hunt. Maybe a little bit frustrated in behind Chad Lewis. Actually, noticed I was on TikTok yesterday of all places, and actually seen Travis Hunt's got a profile on TikTok, and he's uploading streaming videos on there. So if anyone has TikTok, go check that out. I can't remember the username, but we might give it a shout out next week if I find it again.
Yeah, we'll have to just do some digging. I'll talk to him after the race then, because well, there you go. Travis Hunt marketing himself to the best of his abilities, and Travis Hunt trying to side draft at the moment with Chad Lewis, and he's about to get a big old case of the biff from Travis Hunt. In the meantime, Travis Hunt says, "Thank you very nicely. I'll slice all dice." Chad Lewis is going to make contact with the back end of Greg Sharp, find himself facing the wrong direction. A bunch of cars will slice and dice their way through, including Dave Kirby, who grabs a couple spots out of that one. And just because it's an endurance race, don't think the drivers have got an endurance mindset ingrained already.
Yeah, that was a very awkward moment there for Chad Lewis, getting in the back there of the 747 of Sharp, and Lewis has fallen right down the order. Lewis just massively outbraked himself the 727 machine. If we can, might pick up a quick replay of it. Just have a look. It looks like, I don't know if he looks like he didn't really brake at all. He had that much speed going into turn 1, he just couldn't pull it up, and unfortunately got in the back of Sharp.
Have a look at Greg Sharp just here, because this is the critical factor. He was in there hot, absolutely hot, but I think it's all come from Gamble. Gamble checked the both of them up. They all tried to file in single file. Whether or not he was I reckon he was a fraction deep here. He backs it off, so he actually lifts and saves a little bit. Was there an issue there?
You might be right, Scott. It looks like Gamble in front of Sharp was way off the pace going into turn 2, so maybe something to note there.
Okay, so apparently everyone's in there, pretty normal, and then Chad's just overshot it by a fair way.
Yeah, it looks like it's being called into race control by Greg Sharp, so we'll have to see what comes of that in the coming laps.
He's on the clutch. He's not going for gears at all. I think there was what was going on. I think it was just fuel saving. And then it's just fired him straight at the back. So the problem is, as he's released the clutch out of his fuel saving, he's right on the engine brake. There was no rev matching there whatsoever from Chad Lewis, and that's caused him to fall from I think effectively 10th at that point in time to 21st. So 10 positions lost out of 10, 11 positions lost out of that one. The rest of them will all fire up. In the meantime, this is an interesting race. I'm curious to see how Gamble attacks this one now, because he recognises he's going to have to pull his pack along, and that means he can't play any fuel games.
Now, unfortunately, Gamble's in a bit of a predicament at the moment. He's 2.8 seconds off the back of Jason Spriggs in P6, so definitely won't be getting a draft from him. So he's pretty much a lone ranger at the moment. He'll be leading this pack off. Scotty McCune, Jamie McKnight in the top 10, a fantastic drive. Also, Stuart Kirby, all these guys are involved in this pack, and Scotty Gamble, like you said, will be towing them along, but it's going to be a hard, tall order to try and get on the back of Jason Spriggs, who's in the tow of Matt Vanderkrant and Christian Smart, so automatically he's going to be faster than Gamble. So it's going to be an uphill battle for the 543. Might need a safety car, and we all know the strategy is going to be pretty wild tonight, so who knows, he may end up being up the front by the end of this, who knows.
Well, I'm just having a quick look. So for those of you who don't know, ladies and gentlemen rolling on at home, incident point penalties will discount a lap time. So lap time will get deleted if you pick yourself up an incident point penalty in the race. Having a look at Scott Campbell's lap times, he's only just set a faster lap time than his lap number 2. So he's definitely got pace in that car. But his lap time on 2 was a 44.8. His 3 and 4 were both in the 43s. So he's clearly picked up incident points on those laps that have prevented him from being able to record those lap times. So that means that his incident point count might actually be called into question late on in the piece. And it's a tricky track, Brady. I mean, there's a lot of different places we can pick up an off track here. Walk us through them. Yeah,
plenty of places you can get an off track, especially in the infield section. You can drop a wheel off or cut a corner ever so slightly. And just coming through from race control, drive-through penalty for Rick Vigor, and incident on lap 6 might have been one we did miss earlier on, but also Chad Lewis black flag for that incident we did pick up earlier on with Greg Sharp, and we will go to the Logic G replay of the Rick Vigor incident. Brent O'Brien in behind him in the RT machine, so O'Brien going down the inside into the Le Mans chicane. We'll see what happens here with... Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So just a rear lock there from Rick Vigor. Just a simple little error there. Nothing malice in that whatsoever. Just a mistake, and unfortunately cost them both a lot of time, but costing Brent O'Brien time and Rick Vigor being at fault, that's definitely probably a deserving drive-through penalty nonetheless.
I think what you're trying to say is, yeah, look, I think that one's pretty clear-cut. I don't think there's much more to go with that one. Anyway, our top 3 are still stuck together. Somebody's gone out there and attached them at the hip. So it'll be Salyancic, Latham and Ladder, all with less than a second covering them. It's back to Christian Smart. Of course, Christian Smart as well with the fastest lap of the race thus far. Have we got that fuel graphic available to us again? It's probably time to start dissecting that one just a little bit, because this is the pit window here for the first stop is now effectively open. It's a 300-kilometre race, so running deep into this race is probably what a number of drivers will. So effectively they started the race here with 80 litres, refuel capacity up to 90%, so that's going to be somewhere in the mid-90s in terms of the maximum fuel capacity, probably about 93, 95 litres maximum. Fuel burn, 4.2 to 4.5 litres per lap, so we're 10 laps in, so we're looking in the realm of 42 to 45 litres. We are halfway through that fuel tank already. It's going to be a tricky one to manage from here, Brady, but if you're in a little battle pack like the front 3 are right here, I think if you can ladder, you've done all you can to attach yourself to the back end of these guys, trying to buy yourself a ticket to the end of the race.
Yeah, I think Kenny's done the best thing he could, trying to get onto the back of the top turn. There is your strategy for your critical laps. The pit window is open, and there's an even tyre strategy to maximise your race and plan out as even as possible. And even guys going late in that second stint, we could see as well to have good tyre life. We have heard from some of the drivers that the tyre wear can be pretty bad if you go a little bit too hard early on in the stint. So drivers will be wary of that, not to push too hard earlier on in the race and possibly kill their tyres and potentially kill their race too.
Yeah, so a couple things to be aware of, and the drivers were saying to us, or little bits and pieces that we're hearing out of the drivers, is that there was quite a significant early fall off, and then after that, once you settle in, so remember our qualifying pace, 43.4, they're running about in the mid 44s, then they sort of stabilise for a long sort of period, and then they fall off again right at the tail end. So that's what you're going to expect from the tyres here tonight. And the first couple laps is very, very important, and I would say the undercut is probably going to be the stronger of the two strategies tonight. I just don't feel you're going to want to run long unless you know that you've got the fuel to cover that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the undercut will be the way to go. I don't see too many people running that long second stint to maximise your tyre life at the end. I think just track position is too important, even if you have a little bit of better tyres. If you're on your own and don't have anyone to pull you along, I think it's going to hurt you more in the long run. So I think maybe going a little bit shorter will be the way to go. But we've seen in our first car coming down the lane, the 014. No, sorry, that's Rick Vigor, so he'll be serving his drive-through penalty. Got a little bit excited there, Scott.
He is coming down the lane. You are correct. He did drive all the way through the lane, nearly as if he was issued a drive-through penalty. Oh.
One thing I do want to point out, Scott, is you've raced here, I'm sure, many times at Daytona Road Course. How long and arduous is the pit lane exit? Oh,
yeah, it is. And let alone, the benefit that V8 supercars have is their best grip is actually on that stone cold tyre. Think about LMP2s, GT3s, all those things that needed a couple of laps on the tyre to get enough grip in them, open wheelers and those sorts of things. Rolling down that pit lane, it's very narrow. Somebody's going to hit the fence tonight. Somebody always does hit the fence on the pit lane exit. So that'll be something that these drivers will be practicing, preparing for. This pit lane here does take some skill. We've already seen Michael Taliancic start to wheel that car around, and indeed, right there on screen, on cue, a wiggle coming onto the straight. A lot of slow speed throttle pickup zones around this track as well. So rear tyres going to be feeling the burn. John Latham feeling the need for speed, the need to get on with the business, and then goes back to fuel save mode. So he's not quite ready yet, but he can sense that Taliancic is weak.
One other thing we haven't touched on too much tonight, Scott, it's a night race this week. How cool is that? That's another element added to this race. A little bit limited vision as well. So,
hang on. Battle pack between Christian Smart, Matt Vanderkran. They're side by side at the moment, I think. Or that might be Rick Vigor, actually, that's in and amongst them at this point in time. So where Rick Vigor has re-emerged after that pit stop. No, Christian Smart has gone and nicked that spot off of Matt Vanderkran, and then side by side, yeah, with Rick Vigor to his outside. So Vigor's right there and amongst the leaders. And this next battle pack is going to be critical, but keep your eyes on those two that are on screen at this point in time. I can tell you, Latham is there and attaching himself. He's lurking, but you feel that the fuel saving's strong. The problem I've got with this strategy is if you're the guy that leads it out, this coming from a NASCAR perspective, an oval perspective, generally what happens is if you lead the pack in the first stint, somebody else will lead the pack. You'll generally reattach yourself if you're smart about it in that second stint. So I get the feeling Taliancic won't necessarily pop out of the pit lane with the lead, but it might be John Latham, and it might actually be that you want to lead the pack in the third stint because that gives you just a little bit more control over it. So mind games these drivers will have to contend with here tonight as well.
Yeah, certainly. We still got 41 laps remaining, so it's still a long, long way to go in this race. I don't think John Latham's too bothered trying to get to the race lead at the moment. I think he's pretty happy sitting in behind Taliancic, saving some fuel. He'll most likely come out in front during the next stint, and even Kenny Latta might as well. He's gotten up to the back of these guys, so he might be within a sniff as well. And one guy I have been watching is Scott Gamble. He is slowly making his way onto the back of Jason Spriggs and Matt Vanderkraan. So Scotty Gamble's put in some really good laps. The last lap of 44.1 compared to Jason Spriggs' 44.9. So some real pace for the 543 machine. He's trying really hard, trying to get on the back of Jason Spriggs in the 14 machine.
I think the critical thing as well is that there's no one really going out to pursue this. Travis Hunt here has managed to grab a spot away from Greg Sharp. If you have a look at the next couple of cars that are just ahead of them, McHugh and McKnight have sort of pushed away from them, and Sharp's going to slide it back down the inside. He's looking for the crisscross. That was brave. A last minute crisscross to get down the inside on the brakes, but I think that was fuel saving then that brought itself in. Have a look at the number of cars that are in this pack as well. That's quite critical. And then you cast your eyes further forward is from Greg Sharp, Travis Hunt. Scott McHugh, not only just out of the tow range, just ahead of these guys. And the same thing again. So they've managed to Knight and McHugh attach themselves back onto Dave Kirby and Stewart. But at the moment, they're drifting backwards from Scott Gamble as this race starts to progress. And that field spread begins to take hold. I think we've only got the one car off the lead lap at this point in time, which is Rick Vigor after serving that drive-through penalty. But that field spread starting to kick in. I can tell you Rod Hollis is not all that far up the road from our race leaders as well. So that's something to keep in back in mind for the next couple of laps. That might be the moment when John Latham goes from defence to offence.
Yeah, Scott Gamble's pretty much in his own little world at the moment. 2.6 seconds behind Jason Spriggs, but then he's got about the same gap to Kirby, Stewart, McKnight, McCune. So probably not the best case scenario for Scott McCune. He's got no drafting partner, but he is coming on the back of Rick Vigor. So he might get a little assistance there to try and get on back of Jason Spriggs. We're on board there with Rod Hollis, the 177. As you touched on, he's got the last car in the lead lap, and probably not too... And Stephen Kennedy, he was towards the tail end of the field. He's come in for his first pit stop of the night, so that is the first guy that has come in the pits.
Spriggs actually might start getting a little bit more aggressive here with Matt Vanderkraan at this point in time. Travis Hunt, I think that must be a slowdown penalty or a penalty of some description. Greg Sharp has dropped the spot as well, but he's dropped from, what was he, 12th at the time? 12th, 13 to 19th. So that's a number of spots. Stewart's grabbed himself a couple of spots as well, and Kirby was flip-flopping, so something's going on there. I think Jamie McKnight's dropped a couple of spots in amongst this. We might actually want to have a look at the last run through the back straight chicane.
Yep,
that's a lock break!
I just found it, Scott. It was through the Le Mans chicane. Travis Hunt had a monumental moment. I think he was trying to do his best dirt racing impression.
So multiple drivers chasing the impressions of Brady Boardman. Pulls it up, tries to get it turned in, and then goes to pick up the power. There you go. Big old wiggle, and gets a helping hand. I don't reckon Greg Sharp's got much he can do there, and I think Travis hasn't reported that one to race control. I can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen. And I think there's a very, very good reason why, because he reckons, nope, that's on me. Shouldn't have pulled the thing sideways coming out of here. He's offline there.
Yeah, he got the grass, so that's what initially sent him, and then the massive loss of momentum there. And Greg Sharp really had nowhere to go, like you said, so I don't think we'll see a penalty there. But unfortunately for Travis Hunt, he was having a really good run before that. Probably not the best time now to go to his webcam. He might not be too happy.
Well, he's back with his teammate now. He's 1.5 seconds back behind Jeff Thomas. So there'll be a few friends there. Another car coming to the attention of their pit crew at this point in time. To your right-hand side of your screen, ladies and gentlemen, that is the pit lane exit. In the meantime, David Kirby fires it down the inside of Michael Stewart to hang on to that spot and gets himself back into 8th spot. Yeah.
So Hunt and Jeff Thomas and Travis Hunt have come into the lane, the two teammates. So they've come in from, I think, 18th and 19th, I believe.
Yep, so they'll feed themselves in. And this could be even planned as well for both of these guys, because this will be an opportunity for these two to link up and work together, because if they're toe-to-toe, or line astern, or even doing a little bit of swap drafting, or both of those are significantly faster than being out there and being isolated. When you get an opportunity as teammates, you've got to take it on a track that does play host to a fair bit of oval racing and a fair bit of foot to the floor oval racing as well. Thomas is out nice and early. Okay, so it was Jeff Thomas that was out nice and early. Remembering that he was a fraction ahead of Trevor Sun. Are they actually going to re-emerge? Yeah, just slightly in front of our race leaders at the moment as well. So I think they're going to resurface in 25th, 26th. Probably slightly further back. No, it is 25th, 26th. There you go.
Great call there, Scott. Guessed it perfectly. They're just in front of, looks like Halal Cesar is not too far from those guys. And the leaders, I think, Taliensis, yeah, he's crossed the start finish line now. John Latham still right on his back bumper. And Kenny Latta, he's still right there as well. But those guys have gapped Christian Smart and P4. They got about 6.5 seconds on it.
Yeah, I can tell you there's now a big old battle on from Michael Stewart and Dave Kirby. I thought he was going to send it. No, he didn't. He's fuel saving just a little bit. So this battle pack continues to just try and extend that margin. It gets quite deep and close to that rear bumper there as well. McCune might just get a little bit aggressive here. I don't hate this from Scott McCune. In this sort of position, when you're in this position for the first time, you're having one of the better nights, I'd say to McCune, go for it. Just get aggressive. Stuff the fuel strategy. Let's not run numbers. Let's go out there and see what we can achieve and see if we can match these guys in terms of race pace. I think this is a really good opportunity for Scott McCune.
Tell him, massive drive from him so far inside the top 10. He's been known to have probably nearly the worst luck in this whole field, Scott McCune, unfortunately. And that's a little bit of a slide there through turn number 5. He's shown some pretty decent pace in the last few weeks. Just hasn't put a whole race together. So far, so good for the number 77, but I'm going to touch on quickly. Scott Gamble, he's got onto the back of Jason Spriggs, not far away at all. So Scotty Gamble's found some massive pace in the last few laps, and he's not far away at all from Jason Spriggs. So this little battle pack of 3 cars, Smart, Van der Crane and Spriggs, it's now 4 cars of Scotty Gamble.
Yeah, and the only 3 cars in the race that are running faster than Scott Gamble at the moment are Taliancic, Latham and Latta, and I can tell you just about ran an identical lap time to Ken Latta. So it is starting to go the way of Scott Gamble. How long does he go on this run? How much fuel does he try and conserve? How aggressive is he going to try and be? Because here comes the first of our fuel games. A number of cars coming to the attention of their pit crews. The number of drivers that didn't save fuel. And 2 of those are Michael Taliancic and John Latham. I reckon Latham here is going for the undercut. You know he's got less fuel to add. He's going to try and cut them down. And Scott Gamble, of course, a lot of that stint off on his own. And Christian Smart as well, at the head of that pack, was burning a lot of fuel, ladies and gentlemen. Pit stop number 1 tonight from the Daytona 300 from the 24-hour layout here at the world home of motorsports. V8 supercars here for... this isn't a well-known track for its V8 supercar racing. I've seen V8 supercars on the sim here a number of times. What have you thought of the racing so far tonight, Brady? Draft pack racing, it's a different style, different strategy.
It's a very strategic racing here tonight, that's for sure, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's only just beginning though. Taliancic, he does come out in front of Latham. It'll be interesting to see where Ken Latta comes out, and look at that, 2 seconds difference between Latham and Taliancic. So yeah, John Latham 2 seconds short on the stop, but still comes out behind, so it's a little bit interesting, but we'll have to see where the 269 ladder comes out, because he's got an extra lap. I thought he might have been a little bit tighter in fuel, as he had to use a little bit more to catch on the back of the top 2s. So we'll see where the 269 plays out.
Once he got there, he was the 3rd car of the 3, and he gets the double toes, so he would have burned the least fuel once he got there. No, only 1 more lap was all he could achieve. Comes to the pit lane at the end of lap 18 to start number 19 from Ken Latta. Matt Van der Kraan as well. We saw a lot of fuel saving out of him in the early moments. How late into this one is he going to go? No, fires in the pit lane immediately in the background. He's going to bring another car down there with him, which I think is Spriggs as well. Dave Kirby, Jamie McKnight, both to the attention of their pit lane crews. So this appears to be the maximum distance. I've just seen 1 car go on by, but it looks like it was a lap car of, I think, Stephen Kennedy was going through one. So on this first tank, 18 laps, the maximum distance. And remember, we're about 20, just a tick under 20 litres shy of our maximum distance. So an extra 4 laps is available to us on this next stint. That gets us to 42. Maximum distance we can go to 42.
Yeah, I think your math is correct, Scott. I'm not good with maths.
5 laps, sorry. 43. Based upon those numbers.
So Ken Ladder out of the pits now, and look, I don't think he's going to jump Latham just with his really slow pit lane. Got to be close though. He's comfortable P3 at this stage. Here comes Smart and Gamble. He's jumped Jason Spriggs and Matt Vanderkraan. So Gamble now up to effective P5.
And I tell you who else did make a jump in that pit lane was actually Jason Spriggs, has got past Matt Vanderkraan. So one position's gain there for him. It'll be interesting to see whether or not your teammate here, whether or not Mr. Smarty himself is going to work with Scott Gamble. He might just roll the dice and let Smarty Pants over here lead a few laps.
I don't think it would be a bad call for those guys to try and maybe work together to try and get back onto the fellow Synergy Sim Racing car of Ken Lana. Looks like Smart's just let him by there, so interesting strategy. We'll see what happens. Looks like Smarty's just let him go and might just use Gable's toe. Unless he's had a slowdown because he's dropped off a little bit further than what I would have hoped.
I reckon he's saving tyre. I reckon this is intentional. From Christian Smart. And indeed, that is an update of what sim time and all the server details at this point in time. 8:35 p.m. in the simulation. We're pressing on into the nighttime hours. Just over a third of race distance has now been chalked off by our sim racing drivers. And leading the next lap of our competition here tonight is Michael Taliancic by the looks of it, it's going to be a reasonable distance over his next rival and John Latham, who's just barely attached, but Latham has dropped the ladder, and that's going to be critical to the race here tonight. Can Ken Ladder by himself back into this picture?
I think he can. He had to do on the last stint, just catch the back of John Latham, and he did that pretty successfully and saved some fuel. But the next stop will be the critical one. They got the first one out of the way, and how long will they go in this next stint will be the key factor in the end result of tonight's race.
Interesting. Have a look at Robert Crisdale. Where did he start? He started 20th. Who's the car behind him? Jeff Thomas. He started 21st. Both of those guys had very short pit stops. I'm wondering if Mr. Yeaman behind the screen will actually go ahead and grab those pit stop times for us. That's the starting grid. That's the first time he's done that, actually. So, look, it's taken a fair while from Dan Yeaman.
We have added an oopsie.
But pit stop time, is going to be critical. With Robert Crisdale coming to the pit lane on lap 11. So lap 10 coming to lap 11. 59 seconds was his transit time. So, and that's that one there. Have a look at the box time. It's 4 seconds longer from Jeff Thomas and behind, which says to me... Okay, so the number in the top right of those boxes on the bottom of the screen is actually the lap they came in. 5 laps later, and it was only a 4-second longer stop for Jeff Thomas. So he was saving to the tune of a large amount of fuel to try and grab himself a couple of spots. It's worked for Jeff Thomas because he's now jumped himself into P9. So that was a successful stop for him. I'm starting to think Travis Hunt might have picked himself up as speeding on pit lane penalty.
Trying to check his lap times out of 2 minutes.
No, it was consistent.
I don't think so. Yeah, it looks like pretty consistent times throughout the field. So I think Crisdale, though, pitting on lap 11, I think he'll be probably a little bit out of sequence compared to the rest of the field. He'll probably have to take a lot more at the next stop, and he'll have to pit a lot earlier as well. Remember, a critical lap, roughly, I would probably say 29, I think we'll say. The graphic I had before was 31, but can be plus or minus 2 each way, so I think about lap 29 would be the very earliest you can pit.
I can tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering why I'm groaning off of screen, have a look at our battle pack that runs, I think it's from Greg Sharper, it's the front end of this one, 9th to 17th at this point in time. V8 veterans tend to turn it on, and there it is in the background, the right-hand side of that shot of Robert Crisdale. And Greg Sharp's the lead car of this one, and they are just a swarming horde of V8 supercars that are about to make their way out and onto the oval. Let the draft games begin. Travis Hunt, the reason why I picked this up, he's the last car at the back end of this train, and he is just about sniffing Chris Miller's exhaust pipe. I tell you, that's how close he's been to him through a number of those corners. That is some quick maths from Dan Yeaman, I tell you that much. Because I'm pretty sure that's not automated. Estimated fuel taken. That's the phenomenal job from our stats guru behind the scenes.
Oh, big moment!
Huge moment.
Jeff Thomas. Big moment out of the Le Mans chicane for Jeff Thomas. Very, very similar to his teammate Travis Hunt earlier in the race. Just got on the grass and lost the rear end. A massive moment there for the 85. He's going to lose touch with that battle pack now.
Yeah, he's already dropped off and dropped out of the tow range from Jeff Thomas's perspective, and the rest of the battle pack has scrambled. You see the car, a little wiggle, and then he gets across that curbing, big wiggle, and manages to save it. They all scattered too.
Intense battle pack happening at the moment into turn number 3. Michael Stewart and David Kirby, they're going at it as we just finished watching the big moment for Jeff Thomas. It's all going on at the moment, but Michael Stewart and David Kirby, they're side by side. This is intense racing.
Yep, McCune's caught up in this one. McKnight, Dean Flavel, Chris Miller, number of drivers. Travis Hunt's at the tail end of this one, and Jeff Thomas will be trying to buy his way in. Travis Hunt just about into the rear end of Chris Miller. Those two nearly come to grief. So this is where it's all going to kick off. Well, somebody said we might be saving a little bit of fuel tonight. These guys are not saving tyre, they're not saving fuel, and they're even trying to rub a few quarter panels with each other as well.
We had a bit of fun last week with the battle pack boxes, and it's back on screen again. Not quite as long as what we had at Sandown. I don't think they'll be matched for a very long time, but the battle for 10th through to 16th, that's still a pretty good effort for such a long and big track.
And hang on, Kirby is trying to move his way a little bit further forward. So Greg Sharp, we bought into this one, was only just out of touch at the front end of this pack. Kirby took some time out of him, and Kirby was on the clutch on the way into the Le Mans chicane, the bus stop chicane, whichever one you prefer calling it. He was on that clutch mega, and now that's another driver. That was Michael Stewart going backwards within this battle pack.
Yeah, he made the same mistake as Travis Hunt and also Jeff Thomas. Got on the grass on the exit of the chicane, and he went from probably the front of this battle pack to pretty much the back of it. So looks like it's going to get a fair few drivers, but Travis Hunt around the outside, side by side, through turn number 2. This battle pack's absolutely insane.
And at the front end of it, Dave Kirby gets the nose down inside Greg Sharp as well. So that is Travis Hunt's on board view. And the last couple of laps, at different points throughout the lap, he has had Chris Miller's tailpipe about a few millimeters off the front end of his splitter. Now it's Dave Kirby and Greg Sharp that are going toe-to-toe. And if you thought this was an endurance race, nah, you've got to be laughing. This is the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans. They don't know what endurance racing means. It's sprint racing, just a little bit longer.
It honestly is. I swear every time we do one of these longer races, these guys turn it on lap after lap after lap. You touched on earlier, Scott, that race last season at Bathurst. I don't think I could speak for 3 days after that race. That was absolutely
crazy. It was like an hour and 50 minutes of sprint racing.
And absolutely.
Here we go, Kirby this time says, I'm not going to fuel save on the run into the bus stop chicane. Slides it down the inside, gets the job complete at the first apex. Sharp made him hesitate there, made him back it up a little bit. Now Greg Sharp's going to get back into the toe. Who's going to be next to have a big old bite at the cherry? Who's fuel saving out of this battle pack as well? Because that's a metric we've got to keep our eye on. Scott McCune is now the next car that's in queue. Then it's Dean Flavel. Then after that, we've got Jamie McKnight, who's going to try and go the long way around the outside at the moment of Dean Flavel. He's going to have a crack on the long side of the run to turn number 1. Side by side, gets the nose ahead. They'll tip it into turn number 1. McKnight still doesn't get the spot. Flavel hangs on.
McKnight will have the inside run into turn number 3 and 4. He will get the job done down the inside, and also Chris Miller, he'll poke his nose in. Flavel loses 2 for 1. He might even lose more spots. Flavel looks like Travis Hunt, he's now going to be down on the inside run. So unfortunately Dean Flavel's lost. He will stay in front of Travis Hunt just, but unfortunately lost 2 positions there in the space of 2 corners.
And I can tell you that Stuart Hall's looking at all this, who's the next car on that queue, and saying, Dan Yeaman, I think you're going to have to get that graphic work out. You might just have to tag me into it. And then Craig Friend, and guess who? Jeff Thomas tags himself back in. Oh, these guys must have been hearing us talk about them.
They just want us to expand it more and more. Like I touched on, I don't think we'll top Sandown last week. That was once a season moment. As Scott McCune, he's now down the inside of Greg Sharp, attempted into the Le Mans chicane. He'll back out of it. He'll think better of. He'll try again into turn number 1.
Ladies and gents, all in favour of having the top 8 removed from this race, and we'll spend the rest of this race talking about the battle for the win that actually starts at 9th place.
It's like we've forgotten about the top 8. They're just doing their own little thing, and they're really not doing much at the moment, to be honest. All the racing's happening in behind. It's absolutely epic.
And there's just been a huge moment for Simon Hedderscheid yet again, and it's coming out of the Le Mans chicane as well. He's just dropped a boatload of time. He was the next car in queue, so he's not really going to get the opportunity to buy himself into the back end of this one. And have a look at the work that it takes to keep one of these things wound up. I think we might just have to cross to Travis Hunt, right on board with him, and keep an eye on that camera, because at the moment he's sideways as they go through the horseshoe, and that might have been an assisted little moment because Michael Stewart hands the spot back.
Yeah, Michael Stewart got in really hot there into the corner, got into the door of Travis Hunt. Unfortunately, Travis only lost one spot because of it, and nice for Michael Stewart to redress that position. Great sportsmanship from those two drivers. Fortunately, commentators cursed there a little bit, I think, Scott. As soon as you mentioned Travis Hunt, he had a moment.
Yeah, it was like, oh yeah, sweet, we'll go on board, we'll watch him for a whole lap, we'll get to witness what's going on with that webcam, how the guy's feeling. Yeah, and a little bit of a shake of the head. I think that was a little bit of a reaction to him and Stewart coming to blows, and I think that's him discussing the race with his stream at the moment, going, yeah, look, that was probably not really worth it, but anyway, cracking on.
Still a long way to go. We're not quite halfway. I think we're a lap short of half race distance, so still a long way to go. He's still inside around the top 15 areas, so still a good result here. He's maintained his starting position, Travis Hunt, so unfortunately he had some real bad luck last week at Sandown, so he's still on all 4 wheels at the moment and still a long way to go, so he can only go up from here. Yep,
and he'll try and settle himself in. He's just barely managed to buy himself into that slipstream, and that's going to be quite key. Next car ahead is actually Stuart Hall that you're looking at the back end of at this point in time. And they fan their way out all the way down into turn number 1 as they all try and save some fuels. They all try and coast it in there nice and deep, manage to keep that momentum up. And I can tell you as well, ladies and gentlemen, let's start looking at the next battle pack up on the road, because Robert Crisdale is at the tail end of that one. It's got in itself Matt van der Kraan, Jason Spriggs, and then they start to buy their way on to Christian Smart and Scott Gamble.
Mostly looking back, John Latham has taken the race lead from Michael Talianchin for the last lap. Talianchin had a big moment at turn 1, ran wide. His last lap was a 1 minute 47.1. Gamble was a 44.4. So Gamble is charging, and the leaders are tripping over each other at the moment. So the 5.43 is bidding himself right into this race.
Yeah, and I think the critical factor is he's actually pulling Christian Smart into this one as well. Smart's just been like, yep, you know what? You lead. I'll just follow. I'm keen to sit here. So this will be the moment for Taliancic. Runs it very, very deep, but very happy to just keep pulling it up in a straight line. The lap car there is Peter van der Kraan, I believe, that's just resurfacing back out onto the track at this point in time. And will feed himself in at the back end with these guys. And that's critical as well, because when you've got another car that's just sitting in that battle pack, even though Peter van der Kraan's not really a part of this battle, it actually extends that draft back a second and 1.2 seconds all the way back. In the meantime, Taliancic says, no, enough of this. I want to lead this race yet again. And him and Latham will go side by side down into turn number 1. That's going to tighten up our top pack. Peter van der Kraan, it's important to keep half an eye on him as well, because he is going to cause all sorts of headaches for this crew if they want to pull away. And I think that's why Taliancic is getting on it. He wants to pull away. He recognises that pace is slowed. It's a little bit late for that because Gamble has bought his way in.
Again, last lap, Scott Gamble, 144.2. Ladder, 46.9. 46.4 for Taliancic and a 47.2 for Latham. I don't know what is going on, but Scott Gamble's been shot out of a cannon. He's catching the top 3 at an absolute rapid rate.
Yeah, well, the downside for that is that he's been punching a big old hole in the air. Christian Smart's been more than willing to oblige him to punch that one for him, and he's just going to sit his way on in there. This, at this stage, now covers our top 5 drivers, and the best part is, as soon as these guys all start to come together, Matt Vanderkraan and Jason Spriggs are your next 2 cars that are on the road. Jason Spriggs and Robert Crisdale are a little bit back off the rear bumper of Matt Vanderkraan at this point in time, and he is only just a little bit down the road from Christian Smart. So if you thought that battle pack that was going on from, let's say, 9th back to 19th, that was a little bit intense, we might have another one of those, but for the race lead this time.
Wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if Spriggs, Crisdale and Vanderkraan join this pack in the next couple of laps. With how the lap times are and stuff are going at the moment, it looks like the top 3 have picked up the pace a little bit, but Scott Gamble, he's now cleared past Peter Vanderkraan, and so is Christian Smart. And again, Scott Gamble, 43.9 compared to Ladder's 45.2. So massive pace difference at the moment for Scott Gamble. But like you touched on, he would have been pushing a massive hole through the air, burning a lot more fuel than these guys. So that will hurt him potentially at the next stop.
I think the next car that we've got to start monitoring those lap times on, it'll have to be Vanderkraan. And he will have his compatriot, brother there as well, and Peter Vanderkraan. Both of those drivers will get the opportunity to support each other, even though Peter's going to be a lap car. How critical will that be? At this point in time, he's only about 2 seconds out of the draft pack. It's very, very tight for buying himself a ticket into this one, and that will be crucial. Is Matt Vanderkraan going to be another driver that's going to chalk his name into the V8 Veterans leaderboards, into the statistics as this season buys its way on?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Peter slows down just a touch to try and allow Matt to get onto his toe and help him along to get onto the back of Christian Smart. He's 3.5 seconds at the moment, so still a little bits away, but those top 5 cars start battling. It wouldn't take long for him to join that battle pack.
Have a look at the pace. Have a look at this, the top 5 as well. That just spread themselves out just a touch. Ken Ladder's backed off quite a way from the front 2, and he's let them continue on. That's crucial. And then we throw it back as well to that next battle pack immediately in behind. Here comes Gamble though. Scott Gamble's going to try and send it down the inside of Ken Ladder on the run down at turn number 1. Thought better of it. Backs out of it. And he will just let Ken Ladder have that one for another lap. And then they sort of all condense again. The run down at turn number 1. I love me some Daytona racing in a V8 supercar. Here comes Gamble. Once more, not sufficient with shoving the nose in turn 1. He's also going to show that nose down at turn number 4, Brady.
Big lunge there from Scott Gamble. Wasn't quite close enough to get the job done on Ken Ladder in the 269, but he showed his intent. He's going to poke the nose again down the inside. Again, he won't be close enough, but Scott Gamble in the 5-3 showing his intent. He wants to get a move done ASAP by the looks and try and get onto the back of John Latham.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do from Ken Ladder's perspective? I mean, you've got your living Brady to sort of buy us in a little bit that mentality. What would Ken react like in this instance? He's obviously showing a little bit of a stout defense. He's just covering off the nose. He's not blocking, but it's just trying to dissuade him from doing it. In the meantime, that next battle pack, it's all kicking off as well, because have a look at the switch back here from the 2 drivers in the middle of it. Jamie McKnight, it was going head to head. I thought it was. No, it wasn't Jamie McKnight. It's going to be, I believe that's going to be Travis Hunt, Stuart Hall going toe to toe.
Yeah, Travis Hunt, Stuart Hall side by side. And look at that battle pack, still 9th to 18. All gaps separated by pretty much a second. So absolutely intense racing around the Daytona road course. And these guys are putting on a show once again. And Travis Hunt and Stewie Hall, little battle pack. Give it to Travis Hunt for P number 15.
Yeah, and critically, the 19th car has just finally slipped off the tail end of this one. Craig Frenson, there's been a moment that's happened to Craig Friend in amongst all of this. 30 laps. We started our 30th circuit of the Daytona International Speedway on the road course configuration. Air temp, I believe, has just taken 1 degree out of that air temp. Oh, it's actually gone up a degree. And track temp has gone down to 3 as well. So settling in, and strategy, well, that pit window, it's right about to open up here, Brady Gordon. I think, with the next 4 or 5 laps, you'd have to be brave to come early.
Yeah, we did predict lap 31, the critical lap. We thought it could be a little bit earlier potentially. We did see Robert Crisdale, he pitted on lap 11, and we're thinking about 18 laps to a tank, but he's been right behind Jason Spriggs. So we're thinking maybe 22 maximum. So maybe even 24 laps we're hearing in the draft saving field. So Crisdale will be, I think, the first guy of the leading pack to pit as he pitted so early.
Yeah, what do you reckon? They all going to immediately respond within the next couple laps or so? Because Crisdale's got Jason Spriggs, I think, that he's following around at the moment. So I don't think they're going to pull the triggers too quickly there, but it'll be the next pack in behind them. 9th to 18th at this point in time. Dave Kirby, Scott McHugh, Jamie Knight, Greg Sharp, Chris Miller, Dean Flavel, Travis Hunt, Stuart Hall, Michael Stewart is, I think, back to 17th at this point in time, and Jeff Thomas will buy his way in. So remember that Thomas and Travis Hunt both have to pit a fraction before everyone else.
Yeah, 100%, and we'll have to keep an eye on Crisdale. I think Spriggs will probably react to Crisdale as they're in a battle for 7th there, but I think all the top guys, at least in the top 5, and then we'll add in Matt Vander Crane as well. He's not too far out of it either. I think whoever blinks first, everyone else is going to react straight away to that.
It's a long straight too that's run off of the old bus stop Le Mans chicane as well, and you can play a few games. You can shadow towards that pit lane entry, stick a couple tyres beneath the yellow line as you come off of what they call NASCAR 3 and 4, which is the banked turn that runs off of the chicane all the way around. It's probably critical that we keep an eye on just what these guys are doing with their engines, how much fuel saving they're contributing to. And in the next couple of laps, 29th, 30th and 31st on the racing circuit are just ahead of these guys at this point in time. So it'll be Simon Hederscheid, Darren Crosby and Brenton O'Brien. And Carr in the pit lane. So somebody's already bought a ticket and they've gone down there in search of a little bit of speed. Is that Rod Hollis? I believe it is Rod Hollis for Fisher Motorsports.
Yeah. So Rod Hollis, he pitted at the end of lap 8, Rod Hollis. So he was very early. So if he's pitting now, I'd expect Crisdale in the next 2 or 3 laps in the Juice Racing machine.
Yeah, and he can just barely make the end of the race. Paul Burns. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're moments away from a safety car, because there is a car buried in the tyre barriers at turn 1. He's gone straight on, and you can see that thing is pinned. It is buried in those tyres. He is not getting that thing out anytime soon. How long does he wait? Who sees that and comes straight to the lane? I think there might be 1 or 2 cars that are actually going to do so. There might be 1 or 2 cars that think about it and dive on into that lane straight away. There are. Stuart Hall was the only car to bear witness to that and immediately dive into the lane. Stuart Hall could theoretically come out of here with the race lead. Burns is still there. Burns is still there.
He's not caught into race control yet by the sounds of it, so interesting to see what happens. Surely race control might see this soon, but surely all could have played a masterpiece here.
Yeah, this could be big. And what does Talyancic do? What are all of these guys? Surely, they've all seen him. Every single one of these cars now has driven past Paul Burns. Safety car has been called. Stuart Hall is out of the lane, and he will be thundering down. He's going to resurface about 21st or so in terms of track position. He's going to come out. The leaders are still thundering down the backstretch. They're on the way to the chicane. They've got 2 more laps cars just fractionally ahead of them. Race control just triggered that safety car. They didn't wait for the tow. They knew that the tow was coming. They knew they were going to be requested to deploy the safety car. Who is going to be the big gainer? Talyancic has punched a huge hole in the air. A huge hole in the air. Who is going to be the winner off of this pit lane?
Also keep in mind, Scott, coming into the pit, Stewie Hall was position number 16. So let's keep that in mind for when all these pit stops play out and see how much of a gain he gets. But everyone is in the lane, and from here on in, they will make it home. Even in clean hair, they should make it home So it's pretty much a big final, maybe 18 lap push to the end of the race. So we all out. We'll see who comes out for the pits in front. It's going to be very, very interesting.
So at the moment, we've got to keep an eye on where everyone is sitting in terms of this order. So Peter van der Kroon, I believe, just came to the attention of the pit lane as well. He came in just to grab himself some quick tyres and get back out because he already made his final jump of the race. John Latham gets out there and he's going to get back out in the lead of this thing. Only just. It's forced Taliancic to react. Stop. Have a look how narrow this run is as they now hit the cone. They'll get to release that pit lane speed limiter. Where is Hall? Hall's still on his way around. I think he's had to come back in.
Sure, he'll coming around now. It's going to be interesting.
He's going to grab
he's
grabbed a couple of
few.
spots.
He's definitely grabbed a few. He's going to be, looks like he might be behind Scott. We'll try and find where the blend line is. He'll be behind McCune.
Scott McCune, yep. So he has grabbed a couple spots there. So this will all shuffle itself out. So he's grabbed 3 spots. And that fuel number changes a little bit.
He's up to 13th on my math, so he's grabbed 3. That's my maths. We'll see if I'm right or not. My maths isn't too good, but if it's 13th, I'll give myself a high five, I think. 13th, there you go, confirmed by producer Dan Yeaman, it's 13th, so I'll take that one, Scott.
Well, I don't trust your math. Dan Yeaman,
I don't either.
13th. I don't trust your math. I did hear a whisper just before we went live with this stream that you feed your teammates incorrect fuel numbers. So I will never trust a number that comes out of your mouth until we have full-on confirmation. So
I did do that, but he still won the race, so that's all that matters in the end. But I know this is unrelated, but while we're under safety car, we had a moment last night. We were doing a manual 4-lap race, and I counted 5 laps. So all the drivers did an extra lap because I couldn't count 4. So,
okay.
Yeah, do not trust my maths for future reference.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want fuel information for the rest of the season, Brady Baldwin is not who will be asking for that one. That much is for sure. How good is that Porsche safety car, though? I always enjoy watching the 991 get some more time out on track. And indeed, waiver rounds are now being completed for the 66 car, which I believe is Darren Crosby, and the 26, Brenton O'Brien. As they settle themselves in, now it's time to break down our new race order because John Latham's going to be your leader. Everyone will make the end of this race. Nobody will need to fuel save out of this one. Then again, did John Latham under fuel slightly just to get a little bit of track position? That's brave. That's dangerous. Taliancic might have done the same thing as well, but 1.5 seconds? It's tight, given that Ken Latta fueled about the same time as Taliancic. So I reckon Taliancic might have had a crack at under fueling here. Gamble's up track position. Van der Kroon's back in this one. Spriggs is... Whoa, hang on. This bodes well for our championship picture. Can we go back to that championship standings graphic as well? Because I think this is time to do some breaking down. Spriggs, I think, was in 4th. Kirby's immediately behind him in 2nd. There's next to nothing in those championship standings. And John Latham was in that picture as well. So this could see John Latham jump back up to 2nd place.
It very well could be a really good result for John Latham.
Chris Miller was the other one.
It looks like he'll gain a lot, but I'm going to quickly do some more maths. We did say that Robert Crisdale, because he pitted so early, will be affected on the next stint. So I'm going to quickly try and do some maths and see where he is. But he's certainly not in 8th place where he was when that safety car came out.
Yeah, and Greg Sharp's actually having another lovely night here in terms of point scoring. He's actually done a really, really good job this season. Biggest improver, I would have to say, by a long shot, probably Greg Sharp. I'm actually really, really impressed with the way that he's driven. Darren Crosby, we just said, was the waiver round out of that current caution as well. So that's actually rather important. He's effectively going to score. Well, look, a good night would be seeing him back in a 20th place. An average night, he might hope for 25th from this one. But he is around about 30th at this point in time and just got his lap back. So he is back in contention, and that's important for him. And a number of drivers up and down the field. Chad Lewis as well. Remember that moment early on. He'll be regretting that one. Unfortunately for Chad, he is back in 25th at this point in time. So it's going to be a tough night in terms of point scoring for a number of those drivers, but just about every other one of them is inside the top 10 and looking for a good result. So I get the feeling this will probably be the final lap under the safety car, and then we'll be released. We will have 19 laps, ladies and gentlemen, left to run when we go green here.
Yeah, I've completed my maths. iRacing helped me do it, but I was correct at the end of the day. Robert Crisdale down in 17th now, so that early pit stop and obviously having to take a lot more fuel, the safety car has probably hurt him more than anyone else. I think under green flag conditions, I don't think he would have probably lost as many spots as that, but he's dropped 9 spots effectively from where he was before the safety cars. So unfortunately for the 808, it's still +3 at the end of the day, but unfortunately for Crisdale, probably the safety car hurt him probably more than anything. Also probably Rod Hollers was one of those earlier stoppers, but he did pit just before the safety cars. So looks like Crisdale would have been pretty much pitting as the safety car came out, but 37.4, that seems pretty low, does it not?
Well, I mean, he did pit quite early compared to everyone else, and he did have a lot more fuel to add. So I actually think that's probably about a good number for him. That's probably very relative. Yeah, so it'll be an interesting one. A couple of drivers have just come back to the attention of their crews. Brenton O'Brien, I think, has just come back in just for another set of tyres, another splash. Why not? You're already at the tail end of the pack. Paul Burns will get back out under this safety car period, but he will now be 2 laps down. And John Latham has just been handed over the lead of the field and told, you, sir, you need to maintain 80 kilometers an hour, and they will be watching like a hawk on this one. This is going to be a tricky restart. I get the feeling, this being Daytona, you've got to go as late as physically possible.
100% agree. I think if you go way too early, I think you're just going to leave yourself vulnerable to a big lunge in turn 1. I think you pretty much got to go pretty much where the start-finish line is. I'd back the field right up, play some games, because why not? You're racing for the lead, you're racing for a big 300-kilometer race win, so I think play all the games that you can within, obviously, reason and the rule book, but I think Latham should go as late as possible. But currently at the moment, Talien's is sitting a long way back. I don't know if that's strategic or he's waiting to catch up for the last possible moment. I'm not too sure, but he's sitting a fair way back at the moment, and they're not too far off going green.
Yeah, and Ladder and Smart are the next 2 drivers underneath Tally's the rear wing. No longer the one-handed bandit. He's got full use of 2 hands. From last season, maybe he gained a few extra brain cells but not having to use that second hand. Well, might have to ask him after the race. Generally, you have to get a little bit smarter when you haven't got full physical capacities. But in the meantime, John Latham holding them, keeps them patient. This is such a unique restart zone here from Daytona. The run now down the start-finish line. Have a look at Gamble, looking for any advantage that he possibly can. He wants to see when John Latham goes, and John Latham indeed has now gone. Restarts the race, 19 laps left to run in this one. And who is going to be the big winner out of this safety car restart? Taliancic has backed off quite an excessive way. He did not get the jump on that restart whatsoever. Ladder is going to be right there and being able to go with him. And Van der Kraan has managed to close up quite nicely. Huge opportunities in the water for the number 180. And I think Latham has broken that toe already. I think Taliancic was not ready for that one at all. He's gone. Latham is disappearing into the Daytona sunset.
He had a second and a half as he crossed the start-finish line. I honestly do not know what the 21 is doing on that restart. He's so far back, and then as soon as Latham took off, there's probably another 2 or 3 seconds before Taliancic took off. So he must be sleeping at the wheel or something, the 21 machine, but he's absolutely nowhere on the start. He's gained a couple tenths through the middle section, but he's really got to get the skates on if he wants any chance of this race win, but he might have cost himself a potential race win there.
Something's going on because he's riding up the banking here from Taliancic as well. Normally you want to be right down on that yellow painted line as close as you possibly can be without quite touching that one. They'll weave them back and forth as they run down towards the chicane. Fuel-saving games are now over. Does anyone have anything for John Latham, or is now the queue just going to fly by Taliancic at the speed of light once they wind these engines up? And have a look at Latham all the way up the banking and then dips it down. I don't think he's quite aware that that toe is indeed broken. Taliancic did get a better launch off of the chicane, and now they start to condense. They really start to concertina on the run. The first lap under green flags after the restart. They all settle themselves down into turn number 1, and no one goes for a dive bomb just yet, and they have managed to snip a little bit out of John Latham's lead, and they will start to track him back down.
Looks like Talan's just gained about 2/10, 2.5, 3/10 maybe on the front straight there on Latham. So he's gained a little bit, but he's still a long way away. Is Gamble. He tries to look around the outside of Christian Smart there, and Matt Vanderkrane, he's not far off either. So this little battle pack form looks like Ladder's nearly broken away from Smart. Smart defensive into the corner there, and just got a Gamble, can't do anything at the moment. He might have a go into the Le Mans chicane.
Yeah, and have a look at the battle pack then from 7th all the way down, because there's a little bit of a gap. Dave Kirby's got himself a nice little jump here in the middle of this pack, and will try and settle himself in. Spriggs is going with him, and there's that back, that little gap that's formed on screen. And, well,
I think you can do that, Dan.
This train is now the biggest that we've seen in the history of the Kumho Tyres V8 Vets. She said we might not beat Sandown last week. It's going to keep growing on the right-hand side of your screen. I wonder how big. I wonder if there's any limitations on it. Indeed, there is a limitation, because it's all the way down to about 22nd spot before they exited out onto the oval. And now, after exiting out on the oval, that next car is brought back just a little bit. Troy Sipple's still there and thereabout.
He just had a massive moment, as you said that, Scott, through the Le Mans chicane. So that's 2 for 2 on the commentator's curses tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't want me to talk about you, I'll accept $10 before the race. Oh, hang on, Tally
on the radio.
Yeah, I heard that. He settled himself down in. There wasn't actually a change in the lead, but they did go side by side. And have a look at this one, in and amongst all of the battling, all the squabbling that's starting to kick on.
Sorry, Gamble, massive pass down the inside of Christian Smart. Sorry to cut you off there, Scott, but that was a massive lunge from Scott Gamble to get the move done on Christian Smart. Very audacious move, and Ladder, he was right on the back of Taliancic, so these guys are getting aggressive coming towards the end of this race.
Yep, and well, there was 19 laps when we went back green flag racing. Now there's 17. 17 laps, apparently not early enough to start getting by a number of these guys. And have a look at Smart starting to come back at Gamble as well. Those two nearly rubbed on the way out of turn number 7, and the run back out onto the oval portion. Latham leads by only half a second. The rest of them starting to just attach themselves in terms of the toe on. It's now from 7th place back all the way down, because I tell you what, Dave Kirby has found his way past Spriggs, and now it's his opportunity to see if he can set down after our race leaders as well. Have a look at them through the Le Mans chicane. They hook the cars up, they point them out the other side, and now who's got the run all the way down the front stretch into turn 1? Taliancic is there.
Taliancic has caught right on the back of John Latham. Will he make the move this early or not? Still a long way to go. In this race. He's right on the back bumper of Latham. He'll fly on by, and Ken Ladder, he might nearly make it 3 wide into turn 1. This is absolutely epic stuff. Taliancic around the outside of Latham. They're still side by side. Then Gable and Smart side by side. Latham stays in front, and here comes Ladder.
Yeah, Ladder sneaks through on the inside. Taliancic has still got a nose in there. He's going to try and get back down the inside. Gamble's nearly into his rear bumper as well. Craig Friends had a moment, I believe, down at turn number 1. There's a huge amount of checking up all the way back there. But now it's not a door between Ladder and Taliancic on the run down to the keep. And that was the moment they were talking about. Crisdale had an opportunity tonight to score himself a big bank of points. And that has gone down the gurgler.
Yeah, just all. So Craig Friends had a massive moment into turn 1, contact from Crisdale by the looks. So I'll try and pick that up in just a minute after we'll have to sound this battle pack at the front, because it's starting to heat up.
Well, I think we're better off just try and grab that replay whilst we can, because we're going to be sticking with this one for a very long time. The nature of the Daytona road course, yep, it's just going to be a battle pack from here to the end. There is no chance that any of these guys manage to break that battle pack away. So we'll jump to that replay as soon as we possibly can. And the battle pack's starting to break itself up, I can tell you, ladies and gents, as well, in behind. This is our battle now for the lead. 6 cars contesting it. Who's going to have the run down to turn number 1 this time by? And then we'll pick it up as they run through the infield for the replay.
Taliancic, he's still staying with Ladder, and Ladder might go for the race lead here on Latham. We've seen Taliancic trying to get them moved on the outside at turn 1 last lap. Can Ladder get it done this time by? Around the outside, the 269, the 24. Ladder will lead the lap. He'll try and go around the outside, turn 1 through turn 2. They'll be side by side. He won't be able to hold it around the outside.
Whoa.
Here comes Taliancic.
Taliancic will squeeze his way on through, and now that's presented an opportunity to Scott Gamble, who had to lift out, but here comes Gamble to the inside of the horseshoe, very deep down into turn number 4, parks it on the apex, picks up the throttle, and gets out of there, and Ken Ladder goes from leading the lap to 4th place by the time they hit turn 4.
That's the Daytona road course in a nutshell for you. Ladder, big move around the outside. We've seen it the last couple of laps. It doesn't work, and unfortunately, he's very audacious, Ken Ladder. I'll give him that, being one of his teammates. I figured he'd try and get that move done. Unfortunately, couldn't make it stick. We will go to Object replay. That's the end of it. We might try and pick up a little bit early if we can. Chris Dale, I think, gets to the back of Craig Friend here. Just a little bit awkward by the looks of it, and Craig Friend bears off the road. He did call into race control, so we'll have to see what happens with that. We might try and go on board maybe with Chris Dale if we can.
It's a difficult one. They're 4 wide there for half a moment. And he just checked up on the outside. So this is the runoff of the chicane. And I can tell you, it's all kicked off, actually, for our race lead. So we'll have to jump back as soon as we possibly can after we cut through this replay. And you can see the car on the inside is just checking up. Stewie Hall, I think it was, actually. Friend just gets a touch up from Crisdale. They were 4 wide. There was actually a car that was down the inside. They were actually 4 wide, and there was additional contact on the run down to turn number 1. Taliancic has been fired out of our lead pack. So this is what's happened to Michael Taliancic. This is the run down to the chicane, and it's still kicking off because more cars have cut the way through. Taliancic has been rubbed up, had a huge moment coming through the chicane, and out of that, Ken Ladder gets the race lead. Christian Smart's into P2. Van der Kraan is P3, and I think Gamble is in P5 at the moment. Latham's just got to nick back the next couple spots.
I think Gamble might have a case to answer, though, for that contact with Taliancic. I want to stay on the battle pack for now, but I think Gamble might be a little bit of strife with race control. He did get into the back of Taliancic at first look there into the Le Mans chicane. So, unfortunately, Taliancic, he's gone from the lead to 17th. At the moment, Gamble's back to 5th, but at the moment, it looks like the 2 Synergy cars have sort of broken away just a little bit. John Latham now back into P number 3, but I think Gamble might be in a little bit of strife in the next couple of laps.
Yeah, and there's more bickering back and forth. Crisdale was just given a drive-through penalty, actually, by race control, which is what triggered, that was the incident that we were watching beforehand. Apparently, that was actually triggered by a slowdown penalty. Slowdown penalty caused by cutting the chicane. For the lead car was on the inside, which I think might have been Stuart Hall, was trying to serve a slowdown penalty, get out of everyone's ways. You can't feel bad. You feel really poor for him, because when you're in a pack like that, there's 6 cars that are just going to run you over if you lift off, so you've got nowhere you can go. So Hall didn't really have much of an opportunity to try and serve that one safely, but unfortunately that is the chaos, that is the drama that unfolds when we go racing here at Daytona. 1 car now eliminated from our lead battle pack of 6 down to 5. And it's still going to keep going on. And if Gamble's got a penalty hanging over his head, this could be the oncoming storm for Matt Van der Kraan. Darren Crosby's also been issued a drive-through penalty. That one's just came through from race control as well. And we're not 100% sure. That might have been in that incident we were witnessing. It might have been one of the cars that was in the background of that one. But keep your eyes with the battle pack that are on screen at this point in time as well, because it is just all kicking off in this battle pack for what has now become 6th place. Kirby has continued to lead this battle pack. He's had the lucky spot, I'd have to say, from this one, Brady. It's so intense deep in this pack.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be his rearview mirror at the moment, sorry, because it's full at the moment. Chris Miller, his teammate, Sharps, Priggs, McKnight, it's all kicking off in behind him. He's probably got the best place to be and in front and away from all the chaos.
So settling themselves down finally Safety cars breed drama, safety cars breed incidents, safety cars breed a little bit of Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans action. We saw it a number of times this season where the strategy's just been blown wide open, the racing's been blown wide open, and yet again the pressure cooker delivers. Is Kirby going to still manage to hold on to the lead of this battle pack by the time they make it down to turn number 1? Teammate in behind him in the 666 of Chris Miller. Greg Sharp's on for another potential phenomenal finish. Oh no, I've just mentioned his name. Is he going to manage to hang on to this one? So Miller's right there for Dave Kirby. Does he support him? Does he go elsewhere? Where does Sharp go? Who dips? Who ducks? Who dives? And who dodges?
I hope for Greg Sharp's sake, I hope he breaks your curse that you haven't tonight. And there it is. Scott Gamble, drive-through penalty. I think as expected, unfortunately, but the 5-4-3 will be coming down the lane, and that's him out of race contention. So, we've had a car off wide. It's Travis Hunt. I think he's a lap down. I think he might have been caught up in one of those incidents with Chris Dale and friends. He's got a fair bit of damage, but Scott Gable, he'll be out of contention, and it will effectively be a four-way battle for the lead at this stage.
Yep, so the lead 5 becomes the lead 4. And Christian Smart now manages to get a job done over John Latham. He's just barely hanging on to this one. In the meantime, Latta has sensed upon the opportunity, and he is taking the opportunity to disappear down into the Daytona sunset. And now Christian Smart recognizes he's got a little bit of damage. The car's not performing at its utmost in a straight line, and he's got to find some way to bind himself back in. Is Latham the best car to lead this battle pack? I think he just might be.
Doesn't look like Smart has any damage from what I can see. I don't think being at night time is helping it whatsoever, but on my end, it doesn't look like he's got damage. Maybe he's just happy.
That will compromise him. It will compromise him to the tune of 1 to 2, maybe 3 kilometers an hour. It does. It looks minor. It really, really does. But I can tell you, from an over racer's mindset, that does cost precious speed. When you're doing 300 kilometers an hour, the surfaces all around the car have got to be perfect. Now Gamble goes to the outside of John Latham. These two have had a phenomenal duel in terms of raw pace so far this season. Gamble has a drive-through penalty. He must serve that one. I think he's just out here for a little bit of rough and tumble now. He's enjoying the night whilst it goes this way, but he will have to come to the pit lane, and he's not happy. He is not happy with Christian Smart.
That's a bit of a weird one. He just ran wide, no contact whatsoever. Just ran wide and Smart passed him, so not sure if that was accidental on the flashes. I'm not too sure, but wouldn't know what he's not happy about. I'm a little bit bedazzled at the moment.
Well, you're not the only one that's bedazzled. Those headlight flashes tend to light up the rearview mirror. Sometimes it gets in the eyes of the drivers. Smart's got to keep his head cool, though. He's got to stay calm. 2.5 seconds they've already lost to Ken Latta. Now they've got to start working together to claw that all back. Who is going to work with John Latham? Do they even have the pace they need? Is Latta just Gornsky? Because we're going to have 10 more laps to go at the conclusion of this one. Smart is just starting to lose a little bit out on John Latham. Tyres starting to take over. Is that Gamble going to fire it back down the inside again? It wouldn't be Scott Gamble if he didn't.
I personally think it wouldn't be a wise move to try and make a move, considering you've got a drive-through penalty. I think you should be just sitting behind minding your own race. But that's just my personal opinion, Scott.
What do you know about oval racing?
Nothing.
So Latta's disappearing out of sight. So whether or not there's a damage from multiple drivers there as that pack, Scott Gamble comes down to serve that drive-through penalty, and he now will sit there for a very, very long period of time, and he will listen to all those cars thundering down the main straight, disappearing, just like his points haul tonight is.
Lucky for his sake that he's had such a good start to the season with drop rounds. This might be one of his drop rounds, and looks trying to figure out where he's going to come out about 22nd, 3rd-ish. I think I want to say about 23rd, 24th reading. About Simon Hedershine's 24th, and he will come out just ahead of Simon Hedershine. So it looks like about P23.
Man, you've been practicing. Have you been working on your maths?
Secretly, while you've been talking, I've been doing my maths, yes. And that's homework.
thing, Brady Baldwin. You might need it. Your teammates might need a little bit of fuel number support in a couple of days. In the meantime, that gap up lead has now gone out to 3 seconds. So whatever happened in all the chaos there, Ladder has been the big winner.
Ladder's gained massive amount of time, 3.2 seconds out of the gap, and Ladder's just doing it pretty well at the moment. And it's like, I'm just listening to race car at the moment. Post-race penalty to car 999 Christian Smart for lap 39. Did they say, Scott? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, it was lap 39. So what race control did know was that it was redressed, which is why it's only a points penalty and not a racetrack penalty. So yeah, there's a few things that have gone on underneath the surface there. 44-1 for Ken Ladder, 44-5 for John Latham, and Christian Smart was the driver receiving that penalty. Was it with John Latham? I thought it might have been with Scott Campbell.
I think we should try and pick up a replay of this because this is a bit wild.
This is an odd one. Yeah.
End of lap 39 on the main straight, coming on to lap 40. They made contact at 295 kilometers an hour, so hairy to say the least.
Yeah, well, Christian Smart picking up that damage that'll explain why he lifted and let them go. So anyway, this is the run out. So this is when we were watching. So this is Ken Ladder trying to go to the lead, gets a little bit of a bump draft, a little bit of help from Christian Smart, and then comes down with John Latham. So that's why they've lost time, and it'll be John Latham will have got some damage out of that as well. So that's why they're all three of these guys are starting to fall back off of Ken Ladder, because Ken Ladder was the only car that got out of there unscathed.
Yeah, it looks like when Smarty got on the bumper there of Ladder trying to push him, it looks like Ken's gone to the left to try and cover Latham, and unfortunately Smarty's probably followed him a little bit too much there and got into the side of Latham. It could have been a whole lot worse. The drivers got pretty lucky out of that. That was about 6 laps ago, crazy enough. So
that explains it all. That was right as we cut to the replay, actually.
Yeah, I think that is. So that's probably why we did miss that. We'll pick up the replay of Gamble and Tully Inchage. So lucky both guys are still going, but Matt Vanderkraan, he's applying pressure to the back of them for the final spot on the podium. So I don't think Latham and Smart have it too easy. As Smart round the outside, will he be second at the line? Not quite. He will be by about 5,000ths of a second. He'll run wide into one. Oh, Latham wide. Big mistake for the 24. Smart into P2. Vanderkraan P3. A huge lockup for John Latham there in the 24. Massive moment in this race.
Yep, that's just bowling a wide right there, you cricket fans. I don't think I've seen John Latham made that kind of mistake in a very long time. And the next bit of the puzzle now is that Dave Kirby's less than just over a second from his rear bumper. So Kirby's going to pick up a little bit of tow here. And now Matt Vanderkraan is on the podium. For the first time this season, in the dying stages of a race, Matt Vanderkraan has been lurking beneath the waters the whole season. Peter, his brother, has said he's had the potential. We're gonna see it this season. Here it comes from the Daytona road course. He's got 8 to go. Can he lock it down for the Angry Birds racing machine?
Coming into tonight, I expected a bit of a wild card in the results, and Matt Vanderkraan, he's shown pace all throughout the series, but qualifying on the front row tonight was probably a little bit unexpected for me. That's nothing against him whatsoever, but there's some very, very fast guys in this series. So qualifying P2 was a little bit of a surprise, and now running in a podium position as well. So that's certainly probably the wild card I was thinking of coming into this race tonight.
Check this out as well, ladies and gents. This is key. How close does he get to making the overtake at the start-finish line from Matt Vanderkraan? He backed off already, so he's not showing his cards. If we've seen anything the last couple of laps, is that the car that's in second place will have their nose ahead at the line. No matter if they're on the inside and have the shorter run, they will definitely have their nose ahead. If they're on the outside, still enough momentum to go the longer way around. So that says to me, if you're Matt Vanderkraan, I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here all the way up to that last lap. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait, and then I'm going to get a big launch out of that chicane on the final lap and nick second spot.
I think that'd be the smart thing to do, and he has a big gap of 4 seconds back to Latham, so I don't think he's any risk of losing that gap anytime soon. And Ken Latta, he's 5.1 seconds out in front. I was praying that we'd have a photo finish or of some kind, or a tight finish for the win. We might not get it for the win, but we might get it for P number 2 tonight, so it'll be pretty spicy finish in the remaining, what do we got, 6-7 laps.
That was a cool shot. I loved that shot from the inside of that one. You could see the rear brake disc just glowing in the late night twilight of the end of this race. It is starting to heat up out there on track. There's a few drivers that are sort of bickering about it. Paul Burns, I think Brenton O'Brien have had an issue. And here comes Matt van der Kraan, gets it down the inside, pulls it up at the chicane. He's got the spot away from Christian Smart. Now, who's going to lead the end of this lap? Is this where Christian Smart says, no, you can't have this one, it's mine? If they keep their squabbling up, Latham's got enough time to buy back into this one, and they are going to squabble.
I think that one of these guys need to be a little bit smart here and weigh up the risk versus reward, because like you touched on, if they battle, that's going to bring more cars into this. If you bring Latham into it, you're going to bring in Kirby, Miller, Sharp, because all of those guys are closing in on Latham at a rapid rate. So I don't think these two guys can squabble too much. As I say, don't squabble, they're squabbling.
Well, braver heads, it takes them a lot of time, these race drivers, to build racecraft, to build a little bit of smarts. Christian Smart's going to get down the inside yet again at the horseshoe, because Van der Kraan's now made a mistake. So now he gets that one back up. Have a look at the view from Latham. They're going side by side through the kick. Van der Kraan's had a lift. Now it's still kicking on between these two. Oh, you know what? Latham's going to arrive here at a rate of knots. He is now just outside of that toe range. They've got to sort it out now. They've got to put that foot down, or this is no longer a confirmed podium for either of these drivers.
I think I was just touching on that. We could have a tight or photo finish for P number 2 and 3. I think that will be more than 2 cars by the end of this race. The way it's going, Latham's going to be right in this, and I probably won't discount Kirby either. He's within striking range of John Latham. This could be a 3-4-way battle pack for P number 2 on track tonight, and with only a couple laps remaining, looks like Van der Kraan, he hasn't done anything to Le Mans chicane this time by, so I think he might have realised, let's just sit behind Smarty for the remaining laps and try something on the last lap. But Ken Latta, he'll be laughing under the virtual helmet. He's got a massive lead now, and he's really just got to cruise around. He can save his tyres, save some fuel.
Here we go. Matt van der Kraan is going to continue the contest. So these boys continue to just push on with it. He's got the momentum around the outside. That's what we're talking about. When they come to the final lap, if you're sitting in second spot, you will have that nose ahead. If you're sitting in third spot and you're in the draft train, as John Latham is now under half a second, so he's there. It's back to a 3-way squabble, and here comes Dave Kirby. Don't count him out.
Yeah, Kirby's not far away whatsoever, and we touched on that John Latham would get into this battle pack pretty quickly. Literally 1 lap later, he's on this battle pack, and Van der Kraan and Smart still side by side coming up to the horseshoe. This is absolutely epic racing with only 4 laps to go, and
here comes
Latham
Latham
down the inside. Will he get the job done? He noses ahead on the exit. He'll run Van der Kraan a little bit wide. He will clear him. So now P number 3. No, not quite. Van der Kraan back down the inside. This is absolutely epic, Scott.
And have a look at them. They're just backing it up. They're coming back to Dave Kirby. Dave Kirby is just outside, and I'm talking nothing. He is absolutely nothing outside of the drafting range to Matt van der Kraan. He'll be picking up a tiny, tiny little bit of toe. Van der Kraan will be picking up toe off the 2 cars ahead of him. That's why he's extending this margin just down in front. Kirby's just barely managed to pull it away from the guys in behind him. There is going to be 1 straight and 4 laps to decide this thing, and if these 3 don't sort it out, well, does somebody want to take a Scott Gamble about this one?
Very well played there, Scott. I'll give you that one. Yeah, it looks like Latham now. Latham's going to try around the outside. Jeff Thomas has a moment, but Latham, he's side drafting Christian Smart down the front straight. We're going to be 3 wide just about into turn number 1. Now Van der Kraan gets a massive run on the outside. This is epic. Latham will hold the inside. Van der Kraan goes really wide. Smart will get back position number 3. But Latham, he's now up to position number 2 at the moment. This is not over yet. These last 4 laps could be epic, and Kirby still closing in onto the back of this battle pack.
Did I ever tell you I'm not a betting man? I think these guys are proving why I'm not a betting man, because all bets are off. All bets are absolutely off. Kirby is on the fringe of that draft. He's picking it up. It's just bits and pieces. He needs a little bit more. He needs a small amount of squabbling. Could we see Dave Kirby on the podium just about yet? There is going to be 3 and a bit laps left to run. Troy Sipple's had a moment as well down at turn number 1. He's off and in the grass, and there's another car in the background. It's Peter van der Kraan.
And even compared to the last lap, Kirby has closed up considerably onto the back of Matt van der Kraan. So I think if these guys battle on the front straightaway section on this lap, I think Kirby will be right on the back of them. So I don't think it'll be much in it. It will be 3 laps to go this time by. We'll see if anything happens here from Christian Smart or Matt van der Kraan.
I can tell you, ladies and gents, this will then be the highest time we've had a battle pack more than 7 or 8 cars. Because if they buy into this one, it will go from 2nd to, I think it's back to about 16th, 15th, 16th. It's massive. It is absolutely massive. These guys have got to work together. Kirby is 1.1 seconds. It's tantalizingly close. He can sniff it. And here it comes from Christian Smart. He goes to the outside. Spriggs has had a call about I believe the chicane on this lap as well. So now Dave Kirby's in this battle pack. He's caught that draft. He's there, and he will be there at the tail end of this lap. 3 laps to go.
3 laps remaining. I'm trying to figure out what happened to Jason Spriggs. I think he had a moment before that. He's dropped down to position number 18 behind Scotty Gamble. So unfortunately, Jason Spriggs has had a moment, but back on the lead pack here, David Kirby, he's not far away whatsoever, and nothing was done on that last lap. Smart had a little look, couldn't get anything done. He'll get right on the rear bumper once again of John Latham, but still 3 laps to go, and look at the battle pack. Chris Miller, 6, Fisherman, Claw Machine, down to Lavelle and 15th there, so absolutely epic battle play. This is the group in behind David Kirby, so I wish we had a further 5 laps. I think it could be getting really spicy.
I'm just going to say this now. Jay Kennedy, if you're listening from the SimSpeed crew, I need some sort of insurance cover for a heart attack for every race remaining in the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans, because they're turning into heart attacks. I need some coverage because I don't know how much longer these races can keep going in this sort of a matter. Latham is going to lead. We're going to cross the line now at the tail end of this straight with 2 laps left to run. John Latham is there. I think he's crossed the ticker. Indeed he does. And now we go back to 2 laps left to run, ladies and gentlemen. Christian Smart winds the horses up. He's going to run into this one. Here comes Kirby. He's down under 0.8 of a second now. He's down under 0.7 of a second now. He's there. He's in the picture. And for those following along at home, is a Dave Kirby podium coming your way, and I've got news as well. Scott McHugh. Oh, there we go.
Jeremy McKnight, massive moment there for Jeremy McKnight on the exit of turn number 2. As we're about to touch on, Scott McCune has received a drive-through penalty. We're trying to find out what happened here. It looks like Greg Sharp got into the left rear of Tully Hitchens, got loose.
You're going to have to keep an eye on this one. McKnight's not moving. McKnight's not moving. Does this race end under a safety car? We're going to have 1 more lap to go.
Surely they will allow him
surely
to
not.
go.
Safety car's been called. It's over.
What?
It's done. It's done.
Wow.
It's done. And we thought we were going to have, Matt van der Kraan. He's going to be heartbreak. It's going to be heartbreak for van der Kraan. It's over.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that call. I was expecting they would allow him to tow with 2 laps to go, but that ends the race, surely.
Well, race control have now got to sort this out quickly. Who was ahead in each of those individual fights at the exact moment they said safety car? That has got to be sorted out. They've got a lap to do it. This is going to take some amazing admin skills. The team here are good enough to do it, but that's just taken all the wind out of the sail of the last lap of that race.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not the way we definitely hoped the race would end. Like I said, I was expecting they would lay him to toe because there was such a good battle pack from P2, P3, and 6th through the 15th as we've seen. So it sounds like a lot of disappointed drivers, and I think we're a little bit disappointed as well. But if that's the rule book they run, they got to run by it.
Got to run to it, 100%.
Exactly. So I'm not sure on the rule book and how it all is, but I know in other leagues that I have run, if there is a safety car or a car parked in the last couple of laps, they will allow them to tow. So, but obviously every rule book's different, so that might be how they run it. So we'll go to the Logic D replay firstly before we break down everything else. Looks like McKnight just done it on his own after Sharp got in the back of Taliancic, got a little bit loose, but it looks like Jamie just went on his own and must have blew the engine.
Did it blow the engine? Okay, well that
might have blown the engine with the front contact.
So, all right, well that's gonna sort everything out. So we'll have a lot of time here as the field just trundles around behind the safety car, and that will end the race. So McKnight's right there, right underneath the rear wing of Sharp. That's why Taliancic goes a long way around the outside. We'll just see him as he goes to pick up the throttle, balances, and he's on the seam. The critical thing that I noticed there was that he had rear tyres on that seam in the road, and I can tell you from an oval racing perspective, they actually do have grip dynamics based around the filler that's in the road on each of those seams, because NASCARs will lose grip when they put a rear tyre on them, because that's my preferred discipline at the moment. So I would say that's what's caused that one from Jamie McKnight's perspective. And the long run, this is still before the final chicane. Safety car conditions will finish the race.
Is this the first?
I don't know.
This is the first for me, commentating a race that we finished on the safety car. It's the first for me. I don't know. You've been doing this a lot longer than me, Scott, but not sure if you've seen this too many times in your sim racing commentary career.
Once. I've seen it once. I have seen it once, and the only time I've seen it was oval racing. And for those watching at home, they run what they call a green-white checker rule, which means depending upon the settings within the server, they generally run up to a maximum of what they call 3 green-white checker attempts, which is when you go back racing, you have 1 lap. If a yellow falls within that lap, you reset, you go again for a second attempt. Keep doing that until you run out of attempts, or you get back and take the white flag. Once you take the white flag to start that last lap, the next flag ends that race. If that's a checkered flag or it's a yellow flag, doesn't matter. If it's a yellow flag, you freeze positions as they were at the moment of caution, and that's how it ends. So I've seen it once from that perspective. They had all 3 attempts, could not resolve it under racing conditions, so the positions were locked at the last attempt. So this is my first time ever doing it at a road course, though.
Yeah, certainly. I've never seen it in circuit racing. Obviously, I've seen it in real-life NASCAR stuff. But yeah, Kenneth Latta, we've talked about it for a season or 2 now, when he will pick up that win, and he's got it tonight. Probably not the circumstances he wanted, but he was gonna win that race no matter what, Ken Latta. He was about 10 seconds ahead of the pack, so well-deserving win for Ken Latta. Latham second, Smart third, Vanderkraan probably the one that's most disappointed. Even Kirby as well, because they were right there battling for the podium. Unfortunately, it's ended the way it's ended. Taliancic recovers back to 7th. He was back down about 15th after, or even further. I think he was maybe 17th after that contact from Gamble, and Gamble recovers to 13th. So not a bad night for those guys in the end after having a little bit of trouble about 15 laps ago in the race.
So we'll be digging through some rule books, I think, late on into this one. My frustrations, I really thought Vanderkraan had a shot at the podium here tonight. I was sold on that one. I was banking on it. I was digging for it. I was hoping it would come. He'll be a little bit frustrated. He'll still take P4, and he will still take a bank of points. How about Dave Kirby? Great drive late on in the piece. Was in the shot with a shot at that podium as well. There's a number of drivers. Stewie Hall's another one of them as well. Greg Sharp, got to be happy with that performance from Greg Sharp. That's I think a season high performance from him. A really, really good drive. Taliancic gets back through the pack after, 21st? After that restart? After the incident? and he's driven back through to 7th. That's a phenomenal drive from him. Matty Parker's a phenomenal finish as well. He struggled all night long and made the most of timely safety cars late on.
Yes, position number 11, Chad Lewis. Fantastic result. Despite that earlier contact in the race, recovered to a P11 finish. Michael Stewart, P number 12. Scotty Gamble, like we touched on. Unfortunately, served that drive-through penalty, recovered to 13th. Dean Flavel. Jason Sprigg was up there early on. Fortunately, a late mistake cost him any more positions. He'll finish 15th. Scotty Van Loon, past 14 cars on the way to position number 16. Halal Cesar in 17th. Simon Heddershot, who was in the wars massively earlier on, finished 18th. Not too bad of a result whatsoever. Craig Friend also, he had some dramas in that race. He finished 19th, and Stephen Kennedy will round out the top 20.
So I'm just going to do some digging. Safety car deployment is what I think a few drivers will be digging into. Look, I don't care what the ruling is. I'll put it to you this way. So we're going to dig through the results before we'll continue on with that. Stephen Banks, Rick Vigor, Jeff Thomas. That's a frustrating result for Jeff Thomas. Brenton O'Brien will pick up a few spots later on in the piece. Remember, was not having a good night prior to that safety car. Darren Crosby, Troy Sipple, Scott McCune with a late penalty. Robert Crisdale involved in chaos at the tail end of things. Peter Van der Crown, Travis Hunt. You got another driver that was there and thereabouts. I love watching Travis Hunt go racing. I really, really do. And it was frustrating, unfortunately, for him to finish down in 30th spot. In behind them will be Jamie Knight, Paul Burns, and Rod Hollis. Multiple laps down. And interesting night. Don't care what the ruling is. Honest to God, don't care with you. If it's the fact that we go to a finish under safety car, fantastic. Beautiful. I just want to see it deliver consistently. So we'll keep our eyes on things as they progress throughout this evening. But in the meantime, I can tell you as well, we'll kick off our podium celebrations with Christian Smart, because I think he'll have a few stories to tell after this one is run and done. Christian Smart, welcome to the commentary booth, my friend. That was a wild and woolly race from lights out right the way through. Number of moments post that safety car restart as well. And look, I mean, it's tight racing. You've got to have a lot of practice with the draft pack racing. It's something completely foreign to a number of drivers.
Yeah, it sure is. Talk about practice. Yeah, I only started that tonight and left that a bit late, didn't I? But anyway, it was a good race. Thanks, Scott. Mate,
talk to us about close proximity racing, obviously setting up for the toast. We were watching quite enthusiastically between yourself and Matt Vanderkraan later on in that piece. Obviously battling quite deep, taking it deep, pushing each other for every last possible moment. Did you have a feeling at any stage, maybe we just need to stop this squabbling? We've got to buy John Latham out of this and we can kick it off again with 2 to go. We can squabble over it once he's out of the picture.
I don't think that far ahead. I just look at the guy next to me and just want to beat him. So I'm just pushing on. At one stage there, with Scott Gamble, I was like, trying to push him along, and I think he was trying to do the same. And I think we, might have been using each other for a bit of fuel there as well, but trying to get a gap on the guys behind us. And like the tow here is ridiculously crazy with the amount that you can actually reel someone in. I've probably been 3/10 off of some of the guys, and you could just catch them down the straight.
It's phenomenal racing, particularly the stand's full, obviously, within the sim, but if there's a track that you go racing at night, I think Daytona's just got this real aura about it. You've got all the infield lighting, you've got all the oval lighting. It's just a phenomenal place to go racing. And then you go under lights, and it's just even better, man. Talk to us about that feeling. This is such a cultural home of motorsport within the US.
100%. The big corners, like you say, nighttime, the track gets cooler, you get the grip, and this would probably be the most amount of passes at any track you can do with the tow, which makes it really good racing and good. Out of all the tracks, I reckon this one's right up there, because you can just battle with guys and go from 5 laps and have probably 4 or 5 overtakes in that 5 laps. It's crazy.
Mate, I'm just digging through the regulations and whatnot at the moment, just to sort of go digging. We've already had a few comments come out on all the socials at this point in time. A few of the fans at home are a little bit disappointed that one didn't go the duration. There was a major incident. You wouldn't have seen it until obviously the safety car was already called, but there was a car parked on the exit of turn 1. It's such a tricky place because if you need that runoff space, the exit of turn 1's for it. Where do you fall in terms of the safety car call? Because at the end of the day, look, the call's been made. Where do you fall? Do you like a safety car race ending under that? Something unique? Do you want to go racing for that spot at the end of the day?
100%. I wanted to race because I think, there was a bit of reserve there to battle, because, John and I were so close, and same with Matt. Like, that was like awesome because I haven't battled with Matt like that before, and it was really good. And I was looking forward to having a, good battle right to the line with John. Just unfortunate how the cookie crumbled, but it did, and that's racing.
Mate, phenomenal battles all the way through tonight, side-by-side racing, door-to-door racing, and all the shots that we've got on board of you laid on in that piece as well. I mean, it's we saw the moment where you pushed Ken Latta to the lead out across that start-finish line. The call to come down and cover off John Latham on that inside lane, it's a tough call. It's a tricky call, and I think you've missed it by a millimeter. What was the feeling like? Did you want to follow Latta down to the inside lane to cover that off? Was that the plan? Did you just misjudge it? It's tricky. This is such a unique format of racing with the amount of drafting.
If you could get the beat button ready, I just really effed up on that one. I was pushing Kenny, just trying to, and I did say, Kenny, do you mind if I'll just give you a bit of a bump here? And we're both going for it. But just as we're going over that ride, my car got a bit loose. I didn't try and go down left. I was trying to just tuck in behind Kenny. I was just coming off the throttle, and I was just going to sit in behind him and just try and push him in. But yeah, obviously my car got a little bit squirrely there and touched John. I let it go for a little bit before I could decide to redress that one. So.
Mate, so this is a unique opportunity because obviously we don't normally talk to people that are picking up post-race points penalties. I will touch on that because I think it's probably the right penalty that's actually been issued in this instance as well. The difference between a post-race points penalty and a drive-through penalty, they're obviously two starkly different points penalties. Do you think that they've got it right with that call? Because it was a matter of millimeters. You've redressed the position, so Latham's got the position back, and you've been allowed to go on racing. Happy with that call? You'll sacrifice a few points to keep going racing?
For sure. Like, if that was a drive-through, I even think John would think that was a bit harsh. Like, you're racing, and you don't want to take away the fact that you are racing at the end of the day, you're door-to-door. These things, it wasn't intentional. Look, penalties are, I think, if I ran him up the arse and pushed him off the track, but I think to lose, I think he lost the position. He got back, and yeah, wasn't too bad of a downfall for him. But I didn't want anything to happen, but it happened. So.
Such as racing, it is what it is, mate. Look, that's a lot to cover tonight. There's obviously quite a few moments that have gone on throughout the race, so I think we'll leave it there, mate. Congratulations for the finish, and who are the sponsors that make it possible for you and Synergy Sim Racing?
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that. Cheers, Scott.
Who are the sponsors, Bernie, that you'd like to thank for the boys?
Yeah, just all my teammates at Synergy. You got Wave Runner Performance Centre. I won't go through them all. I think you've given me plenty of airtime. I'd like to thank Jamie for the setup, and Kenny, congrats on the win, and John on P2 there, and Matt, awesome job of racing there. A lot of other good battles with Scotty too. It's just shame he dropped back there. Unfortunate, but yeah, we had a few good battles with a few of the boys there, but it was good, and congrats to all the other guys.
All right, beautiful. Thank you very much for your time, Christian. And thanks for the candid responses as well. I actually really appreciate that because there's a couple of sensitive topics in and amongst that, mate. Great job tonight. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Cheers, mate. Catch you later.
We'll take one step further forward in terms of the podium standings tonight. And for Shadow Racing, John Latham, mate, that was wild and woolly. You were a mile off that podium with a couple of laps left to run there, and somehow you've managed to grab it and managed to come away with it.
Yeah, pretty spicy race there, I think, towards the end. Obviously, good old Daytona lends itself to a lot of fuel saving and just follow the leader type stuff. But yeah, it gets towards the end, it was pretty spicy. When I ran off the road, I was like, it just still just getting a little bit used to the pedals, and I braked just that didn't have enough of that kind of, not the initial, but just after the initial brake pressure, I let off a bit too much, which meant I had a little bit too much speed. So I just kind of drifted it into there, and then those guys, Christian and Matt, they were having a good battle. So I was like, oh well, if they're going to battle, I'm going to just see what I can do. And I was pretty marginal on fuel as well, so I was actually really, really thankful that that safety car come out, because I was pretty close. I would have been on like fumes going across the finish line there. So yeah, really spicy race. I hope it was good to watch.
Let's talk a little bit about obviously the finishing of that race. So I found the paragraph. It is within the V8 Veterans League. Race control have complete discretion over the use of the safety car. I'll actually give you the rule number so that everyone along at home, if wants to download the V8 Veterans rules, they can absolutely do so and read it out themselves. 3.11.6 race iRacing have complete discretion over the use of safety car, including when and if to deploy the safety car. They may take into consideration factors such as, but not limited to, laps remaining in the race, time left in the sessions, whether or not deploying a safety car will result in the race finishing under yellow flags. Completely and utterly at steward's discretion, mate. First time that we're hearing from a number of people that the race is actually finished under a safety car period. It's a difficult topic to discuss because there's going to be positions taken. Yes, look, I mean, it is what it is. Obviously, Ken Ladder's going to be quite indifferent to it, had a fairly big margin at the front end of that one. It's racing at the end of the day. I think they've used discretion here. I think they made a tough call. The tow rule is a critical one as well. It's critical to all the drivers. Where do you stand on it?
Well, when I came around the first corner, I saw where that car was sitting. It wasn't a very good spot. So, I mean, if you were actually racing for real, that would have been a safety car because that car was in not a great spot. So, I probably agree with their decision, but it's also unfortunate that it couldn't finish under green, So, I mean, for myself, I'm probably a bit happier that it finished under the safety car. But, on the other side, I would have fought just as hard if it was green or just a local yellow or whatever towards the end to defend those guys off, I was just really looking down at my fuel numbers and then trying to really place the car and be really smart with how I was driving and just try to get a good run out of probably the last chicane, the last bus stop there is probably really important. So, if you can kind of get in good there and get out good there, at least you've got a good chance down towards the end. It would have been, I think, a really close ending going across the line. I'm not sure who would have won because, you obviously do get quite a good draft there. So,
and then finally, mate, we'll shuffle things along because obviously 300-kilometer race tonight, quite an extensive festival of racing. Who's the sponsors that make it possible for you, mate?
Yeah, cheers to the guys at Racecraft and cheers to Faz for spotting for us tonight. That was a good help. And all the boys at Shadow Racing, racing in the other splits. I know they're having fun, so shout out to them as well.
Mate, thank you very much for your attendance as usual. Again, same thing. Enjoy the candid responses because it's open. It's a discussion about racing. Loved it every minute. Thank you very much, John Latham.
Thanks, guys.
And finally, we'll step up to the top step of the podium. The man who had it one and done. A safety car doesn't impact his race none. Mate, that was wild and woolly after that the first safety car of the evening. Talk us through the race because that was not easy, Ken. You were in a difficult position. You saved some fuel early. You sat with the lead guys. It's a long, long race when you come to Daytona. Sorry, Christian Smart, wrong guy. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry, apologies about that one. Ken Ladder is now with us in the booth. We've grabbed the right driver finally. Difficult night tonight, mate. 300 kilometers around Daytona. Safety cars played just such a critical factor within this race. That first safety car coming obviously right at the start of the fuel window. It was a difficult night all the way through.
Yeah, well, as you could sort of tell, I was saving a fair bit of fuel, and I was a lap ahead of the guys on fuel as well. So I felt that the race was sort of playing to my advantage. And when the safety cars came in, then obviously that advantage got taken away. So
How do you keep yourself up for the battle? I mean, particularly over a 300-kilometer race, you've got to reset. We were like 20 laps to go at the point where the safety car came out, comes back in with 19 laps to go. It's nearly a complete refresh. You've got to reset yourself as a driver. The strategy changes. The fuel saving, gone. Don't worry about it anymore. No longer relevant. How do you switch back on and go back to aggressive racing?
Well, I knew straight away that because everyone had fuel to get to the end, so there'd be no more fuel saving. There's no more mucking around like like you could see that we were, and it was just either hell or leather to the end. And I was just sort of thinking in my mind, all right, don't just the first few laps, just take it easy on the tyres. So I got really good tyre life for the end. But obviously, with everything that happened, I managed to get the leading and actually break the draft as well, which was good.
It's so difficult to do that at Daytona. You nearly require a moment for that all to happen. But prior to that moment happening, obviously there was no holding back there. You were going for it. There was a push on multiple different laps. It just so happened you were the car in the right spot at the right time to take the most advantage. You got that little bit of a push. It's so handy when you're in a pack of 5 cars, 6 cars even, that you've got a teammate there to give you a little bit of bump, a little bit of support, mate. It's intense, this drafting stuff.
Oh, it certainly is. But, I guess on key corners, it's probably better to maybe, choose when you're going to make a pass and probably don't be jammed up someone's bum, you know what I mean? Like on certain areas of the track, because otherwise you can't see where you're going and then things can happen.
Mate, it's another celebratory night in terms of things. Obviously, 5 seconds out in front at the tail end there, man. You just kept putting it on the apex, driving it nice and deep, just hitting all your marks. Obviously, it's never easy when you're in lead of the race and you break that toe. You can sometimes get a few little nerves that creep in, a few mistakes that creep in. There was none of that tonight. It was just into the corner, pick up that gas, out of the corner, let's go.
Yeah, it certainly was. Felt comfortable. Car felt pretty good and brought it home. I didn't really have any nerves and I was pretty comfortable with this track. We've done enough practice. It was good.
All right, mate. And finally, just before we wrap things up, big shout out to all the sponsors from you that make it possible for Synergy Simulators.
Well, thanks to all the guys at Synergy Sim Racing, and John and Christian for getting there in third, and you guys for the broadcast and race control, and Wave Runner Performance Center, Smithson and Renovation, DR Epoxy, DGG Custom, Australian Laminating Company, DM Sim Photography, JK Signs, Nolan, Aftershock PC, West End Mazda, and Tourzy Finance. Thank you.
Congratulations, mate, and big congrats on the win yet again here, Ken Latta. Another strong season so far for you. It's been a really good to watch, brother.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And finally, that's going to round us out here, ladies and gentlemen, from virtual Daytona. Brady, that was just... I don't know if it's in these drivers' skill set to have a quiet race. I don't think they're possible of it.
I don't think so either. I think every time we broadcast these races, they're top notch, and there's always something happening. Whether it's in the top 3, top 5, around 20th, there's just always something happening, and it always keeps us intrigued. And man, we think this week was wild. I think next week will be just as wild if we do have a little B-roll screen to show us where we are next week. It's Watkins Glen, the Cup layout. So where the NASCAR guys race on, that's where we're going. So we see how crazy the NASCAR races are. And this is on obviously the new scan. That's one of the updated corners with a little bit more runoff. Updated scan for Watkins Glen. Looks beautiful, and I think next week will be pretty wild. I think it's one of the shorter races of the season, but a pretty short layout. So
it's a short layout. It's like it's right around a minute lap time. In a NASCAR, which doesn't turn all that well, it's about a minute and 10, minute and 15-second lap time, somewhere in that range across the 3 different series. These are V8 supercars. They carry themselves across curbs very, very well. They turn very well. They pick up the power. It's going to be, I believe, the Go Bowling 150 because I love looking at that go bowling screen, because sometimes the drivers, when they get down to turn number 1, they just go bowling. It's the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans Championships. This has been proudly covered yet again by SimSpeed. Big shout out to all the sponsors that make it possible. Kumho Tyres, if you're thinking about tyres, these guys sponsor us. Man, they get their money's worth. Logitech G Replay, how many times did we cut to that tonight? Parramatta Isuzu U, Player One Sim Gear, and Nova Sim Sports. This has been round number 8, the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans of the Daytona Road Course. On behalf of Daniel Yeaman, Brady Boardman, and myself, Scotty Radagon Rankin, good night. We'll see you next week.